What it do? What's up? Welcome to another episode of ENN. ENN stands for Exiles Network News. And this is episode 39. We're back like sequels. We're back like reboots. We have to apologize because we missed last week's episode, due to our schedule, coming out of COVID, things are a bit crazy right now, but we couldn't stay away for too long. So we are back with a really good episode, and I'm delighted to be joined by the usual suspects, Christian and Paul. Christian, what's good?
What up? Missed you guys. Good to be back.
Same. It's good to be back. It's good to hear your voice. Can't wait to get into this really good episode. Paul, Mr. Positivity.
Yeah, I am positive today. We got some great stuff to talk about, and I've been waiting 10 days now to talk about Tron. So it's a plus we got some other really big news in the last couple days. So this is gonna be a good one tonight.
Yeah, it really is gonna be like this episode. This is a thick episode. I'm talking like Sofia Vergara thick, like Beyonce thick, like.
Sorry.
All you can eat Adele before the weight loss thick. Okay. Here is our rundown of topics for the day. So we're going to start with Tron 3, which is officially in motion. We're going to go a little bit deeper into some details about that. I'm sure Paul is going to have a lot to say. He's the biggest Tron 3 stan in the entire world. So that's going to be a nice conversation. Then AT&T has been doing a bit of restructuring of Warner Media and the properties under them, and it's resulted in some pretty serious fallout, including a lot of layoffs at DC Comics. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to pivot from that kind of somber news to some really exciting stuff. We have our DC Fandome preview / primer. You're going to get everything you need to know about this one-of-a-kind, first-of-its-kind virtual con. Then, in some breaking news, Batfleck is back. The GOAT Batman is back. And we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about the details of his appearance in the upcoming Flash movie, how we feel about it, and what that means for the future going forward. Then we're going to talk about the ongoing saga of Ray Fisher versus the Justice League reshoots executives. It's getting really real in the field, as they say, and we're gonna get into that. Then our coming soon section, we have a dope trailer to talk about: Death on the Nile from Kenneth Branagh, featuring a ridiculous cast. Trailer came out. We're going to talk about it. Then we also got a tiny teaser for the trailer for the Snyder Cut. We're going to, react to that as well. And without wasting any more time, let's go in. So let's start with Tron 3. Out of left field, kind of out of nowhere, there were like some rumors bubbling, and then all of a sudden, Deadline magazine dropped an exclusive that we finally have some movement on a sequel to Disney's Tron and Tron Legacy films. It's officially in development, and the director is going to be Garth Davis. He's not really like a massive director. He's directed Lion and Mary Magdalene, and it's going to be starring Jared Leto. However, this does not mean it's been greenlit. So let's start with Christian. Christian, what do you think about Tron 3 starring Jared Leto?
I definitely want to leave a chunk of this to Paul because I know how excited he is about it, so I'll try to keep my comments short. But Paul, I'll tell you this, my wife I think Daft Punk did the Tron Legacy score, and that was on her playlist when we were in the car the other day, and it's a pretty damn good score. It's a tech like kind of like a thumping. It's really just an interesting. It's kind of clubby, but it's electronic. Anyway, it's a really good score. There's a lot going on to digest with all this, and Paul can really wrap into this a lot more. It seemed like Jared Leto had been potentially involved with a Tron project for quite a while. I think it was called Tron Ares. Now, if that's potentially what Tron 3 is going to be, does that mean he's going to be playing Ares? I liked the direction that they took in Tron Legacy with the ISOs and having especially Olivia Wilde's character come out along with what's his name's son, which and now they're out and about in our world, and she's learning about our world. She's an entirely new life form, an entirely new organism. If they went that direction, I really would be 100% behind this. But right now, we don't necessarily know what direction it is. It could be a very villain-centric movie. They could be going back to something that really is more along the like the Machine War. So is that a little bit more Matrix-y? So, quote unquote. So again, like you said, Lupe, nothing is really set in stone here, but from a sci-fi perspective, you got to be kind of excited about this. I know Leto's a little crazy, but he's a good actor. They seem to take a lot of care with Tron Legacy. They did that movie right, made a decent amount of money. Fans were behind it. The production value was really high. The special effects to try to update everything they did in the 1980s to today looked fantastic. So there was a lot of respect there. If they're going to do something like that, I think you have to be excited for this, unless you just don't care about Tron and then you shrug your shoulders and say, I don't give a shit. But if you like Tron, yeah, I think you got to be pumped for this. The only downside is we just don't know too much about it. Now, I know Paul's done a lot more research, so he might have a better idea of what direction it looks like they're going in. But from the little bit of research I did, it looked like they didn't necessarily have a lot of meat on the bone for us to chew on quite yet. I'll end you on this and toss the football back to you guys. I hope it's not a reboot. That's what I hope. There were rumors out there in the past that they were going to reboot Tron. I'd prefer not. We got some really great stuff with the ISOs. I would really like to see more of the effects of what happened on the grid in the real world and everything like that. The programs they're alive and everything. I don't want to see some sort of reboot. Let's continue this cool storyline that they really had going in Tron Legacy, as opposed to rebooting the whole thing. So outside of that, I don't have a ton to add, and I'll chuck it to you guys.
Yeah. So I'll take over there, Christian. It's I mean, for me, this is great news. I think this is pretty exciting to see this finally, semi-confirmed moving forward. And just to back that up a little bit, this was actually leaked about a month beforehand. There was a Disney music executive who was being interviewed on something called the Light the Fuse podcast, and the executive's name was Mitchell Lieb, and this was back in I think it was July 8th. The article leaked, or the article came out that. He was trying to get Daft Punk back for Tron 3. And he said, we've got a great script. I mean, a really phenomenal script that we're very excited about. Whereas the timing wasn't right to have done it years ago, I think we feel like the timing is right now. And I feel like we've learned a lot of lessons from the last movie. And then he goes on to say that from his perspective as a music executive, the first piece is to get Daft Punk back. So this has actually been out there for a little while, about a month before this Deadline exclusive broke. But I thought there was a couple of really interesting things here. So Deadline made a point of saying that it hadn't officially been greenlit, that Gareth Davis was attached to direct, which with Jared Leto producing and starring, which Gareth Davis is a bit out of left field. Like, I know I've not seen Lion. I know it was nominated for a number of awards. I'm actually going to go watch it now because I'm curious to see what we're potentially getting. But up until this point, Kaczynski was always, Joseph Kaczynski, the director of the original Tron Legacy, not original Tron 1982, but the sequel Tron Legacy, was always attached to direct, or rumored to be attached to direct any sequel if and when it comes out. And so I was disappointed to see that he wasn't attached. But I was pleasantly surprised to see Jared Leto, and I mean, boy, I didn't realize how much hate there was for Jared Leto till they announced him attached to this project. And boy, there was a lot of negativity. Like most of the surveys you see going around on film Twitter are you excited about Tron 3, or yes, no, why Jared Leto, that kind of stuff. So I was really surprised at the negativity toward Jared Leto, but I'm curious about Garth Davis. I would have liked to have seen Joseph Kosinski, but then, as I say, Deadline left it off as not yet greenlit. But then shortly thereafter, Leto came out on Twitter and he confirmed it himself. So I think this is more than just, talking about a project. Like I'll read you his tweets from August 10th. He said, "I'm struck with such gratitude for the opportunity to bring this movie to life, especially as both the original video game and the film affected me so deeply as a young child. The fact that I get to be part of this new chapter is mind-blowing. I'm so very excited and proud to confirm that yes, I will be starring in Tron. We will work as hard as we possibly can to create something that I hope you will all love. We have some very special ideas in store for you all. See you in the grid." So that sounds a little more confirmed to me, a little more definite. So I think that's really great and exciting news. And I like Jared Leto as an actor. I liked him as Joker. I know he gets a lot of hate for that. I thought he was great as Joker, and I want to see more of that. And I hope we do get to see the Ayer cut, and we'll get into DC Fandome and what we're hoping for there later. But he's been great in a lot of things I've seen. I mean, I liked him in Blade Runner 2049, and I saw people criticizing him for that movie. I thought he was just fine. I've never seen Dallas Buyers Club, but I mean, everything I've seen Leto in, I've liked. And I think he just looks the part. Of a character that you might see in the Tron world, right? And whether or not he's a protagonist or an antagonist, I kind of assumed with a name like rumored name like Ares that he's going to be a villain, and we'll see what what comes of that. But I think this is great. I hope, like you said, Christian, and this is a big one. I hope it's a sequel and not certainly not a hard reboot. I don't think it's going to be a hard reboot, but even not even a soft reboot. That's not really something I'm interested in them doing. I'd like them to continue the story. Now to your point about Cora, played by Olivia Wilde, coming into the real world. I mean, that concerns me a little, because what I love about Tron is the grid, right? When you bring the ISOs into the real world, and they said, now let me take this back a step. This is another interesting point about this whole story. So, in addition to the Jared Leto hate, we're getting a lot of people saying it's a reboot, and I've seen no evidence that this is a reboot. I'm not sure why people think are so sure that this is a reboot. Maybe it's because Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde have not been mentioned yet, because obviously they'd be fairly important to you would think at least fairly important to a sequel. But there is an interesting point here. When you look at who's been attached to write the script, it's someone called Jesse Waguto. I have never heard of Jesse Waguto, so I looked him up, and I've never heard of anything Jesse Waguto's ever done. But interestingly enough, these rumors of Jesse Waguto being attached to write the script go back to December 2012. So back in December 2012, which is now almost 8 years ago, he was reported to be working on the latest version of the script. Joseph Kosinski, in an interview back in December 2012, said that the film would be Tron's Empire Strikes Back, so the second movie, I guess, in a trilogy. He said it would blow the doors off the franchise, and explained that Tron 3 would take place in real time following the events of Tron Legacy after the same number of years. So the way I'm interpreting that is if this came out in 2015, it would be 5 years after Legacy, and we're going to see all of a sudden what's transpired in the last 5 years since Cora came into the real world. Now, are they going to do that now that it's already 10 years later? Are they going to do that now that it's 12 or 13 years later by the time this actually hits theaters? Probably. I mean, if this actually gets going soon, we'll probably see it in 2022, I'm guessing. So are they going to pick it up 12 years later? And if so, then I guess you could move forward with that story and explain the absence of Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde if 12 years have passed. Or maybe they're going to be included and they just haven't been confirmed yet. But so I'm kind of thinking that maybe we're still going back to this idea, and not to belabor this, and I'll pass it on to Lupe shortly. But as you look through the evolution of how this sequel has sort of the life cycle of it, I guess, as it went on from 2012, 2013, Tron Uprising, the animated series that we've talked about before, that I really like, it failed to land a second season. Things started to go downhill for Tron. But even at that time, back in 2013, Kosinski had said that the film was going to open up the world of Tron, give it broader appeal. It wasn't, and even up until March 2015, they said that Tron 3 was supposed to start shooting soon in Vancouver, and that it was going to be called Tron Ascension. And Olivia Wilde talked about the script. She said she'd seen one. So this got pretty far, and she said that that hopefully it was going to focus on character development for Cora in the real world and the exploration of artificial intelligence in the Tron universe. So everything was still moving forward up until May 2015. And then Hollywood Reporter added that Disney was interested in adding Jared Leto to the cast. So we're not talking Leto reboot. We're talking adding Leto to the existing story. Then they said that later on that the Later on in 2015, the plug was pulled, and that was sort of where it kind of died. Then back in 2017, Joseph Kosinski was asked again, and he said, no, it hasn't been scrapped. It's in cryogenic freeze. And then a few days later, they said that Disney was looking into rebooting the franchise with Jared Leto. Now, that wasn't Kosinski that said rebooting. So this is maybe where the reboot thing with Jared Leto started. And then, from 2017, they've said they've got the script. They've said it's in cryogenic freeze. Leto was attached. And now when we look at what the executive said a month ago, that they've got a great script that they love, it's that the time wasn't right before, but now it is. It leads me to believe this isn't a reboot. So anyway, sorry to ramble on too long, but
I think I'm with you, Paul, and a part of me for interjecting for a second. I agree with you, and I'll keep it brief. I think the only reason people start thinking, reboot, not only does it get clicks, right? You say reboot, and people start, they get a bunch of clicks. But I think there's two things at play. I think it's the development hell that you just explained. That's number one, and number two, Jared Leto's very big personality. The cultish 30 Seconds to Mars following and everything like that. It's just very, I think you put those two together and it's very easy to start a narrative of a reboot, even though what you just said I agree with you. It leads me to believe that it's not one. And I really hope it isn't. It's just, I think it's easy to see how that story kind of feeds on itself,
Yeah. Well, apparently, I mean, this back when this rumor of it being a reboot featuring Leto started, which was in 2017, that's when we first heard of this working title of Tron Ares, which apparently was subsequently deleted. And then I think Leto did it again. I think he called it Tron Ares again back on August 10th, then had to delete his tweet and repost it without the Tron Ares. I think he wrote like hashtag Tron 3 instead of hashtag Tron Ares. And originally it was rumored to be called Tron Ascension. That's the only thing that would give me maybe some pause. But I think this is more an evolution of that same script that was in cryogenic freeze. At least that's the impression I've got. The only question is, are they going to still bring back Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde? Are they still going to treat it as though it's real time and 12 years have passed? Which would make sense because you're in a world where the technology is constantly advancing in our world, and you kind of have to keep the technology leaps in the real world kind of consistent with what you're seeing in the movie.
World,
and then obviously there's a huge sci-fi fantasy element to the Tron world. But when you look at the tremendous leap from 82 Tron to 2010 Tron, and you weren't kidding when you say there was a huge technological leap. That 2010 Tron movie is still beautiful. It absolutely holds up. It's one of the best uses of 3D to this day. It's just it's an audiovisual feast, that movie. I absolutely love watching it. It's hypnotizing just looking at it. Right? It's just whether you think the script is convoluted or overly stylized. That's what I like, the stylized nature of it. I like the mood of it. I love the music, like you said. The score by Daft Punk. They've even got I still listen to that. And there's even another version of it called Tron Legacy Reconfigured, which is like a sort of another twist on the Tron Legacy Daft Punk score. So I think it's great, and I can't wait to get a chance to go back into this world. And I'm really excited about it. And like you, I just hope it's not a full reboot, and I hope it can be reconciled with the last installment. And then, hey, if this is the second in a trilogy and this is their Empire Strikes Back, fantastic. I hope that's still the case.
Yeah.
Lupe, what do you think?
I think that you guys have exhausted this topic to every logical conclusion. I'm excited about Tron. Really love what Joseph Kosinski did with the 2010 version. I think it's definitely one of the best looking films of the 21st century. If you're going to make a list of great looking films of the modern age, it has to be on the list. Or else I don't want to hear anything else that you got to say. So on that wavelength, I'm kind of disappointed, a little bit anxious that he's not involved in any way. Even if I heard that he's a producer or a consultant or something, because that way he updated the visual language and the aesthetic and what he does with dimensions and composition and structure. There is something deeper about Kosinski's style that really lends itself to the universe of Tron. If you watch his other films, if you watch his short films as well, there is something about his style that I noticed where the objects and the composition are very symmetrical, very structured, always divided in equal portions, and that lends itself to that cold, harsh ones and zeros sci-fi. Well, such a natural fit. So bringing on another director, will he have another vision, or will he try to emulate Kosinski? Kodinsky. I'm always up for artistic interpretation, creative freedom. So it could be very nice to see someone bring a different flavor, give us something else that's different from what we loved. But you never know. We could love that as much, and we could just be happy with the variety that we get. But at the same time, there is still the risk that we get a downgrade.
Have either of you guys? Sorry to interrupt you, Lupe. I just want to get your opinion on something. Have you seen Lion? Have either of you guys seen Lion to know what we can expect?
No,
from,
I haven't.
From
But
Garth
I've
Davis?
seen trailers. I've seen trailers for it. I've seen like preview footage. He doesn't strike me as a visualist. Now,
I got the same impression. I skimmed through Lion. I skimmed through some scenes of it, and I just didn't see the connection. And I know it's a well-regarded movie. I just didn't see the visual flair that you would expect.
Mm-hmm. So I don't get the connection. I don't get why, but it could be that those films didn't present the opportunity for that. But at the same time, I'm not gonna give him that crutch, because directors who are visualists, it doesn't matter what they do, they always find a way to imprint their visual stamp on even the simplest, most basic material. So he really has to step his game up, because there is a legacy to live up to.
What about Mary Magdalene? Have either of you guys seen Mary Magdalene?
No. That one I don't remember. That one I don't remember.
The one thing I should mention as well is that back in that article I was talking about from July, where they were interviewing the music executive Lieb, he said at the time, and this is only a month ago, that the studio wanted Joseph Kosinski back, though he's not currently tied to the project and might be busy with another Top Gun movie if Top Gun Maverick is successful. So it's entirely possible that they still have a good relationship with Kosinski, and that maybe he will serve as a more hands-on producer and provide some of his expertise and visual flair, even if he's not the one directing it. It's time will tell. I mean, I think we'll find out about the castings, and we'll find out what level of involvement, if any, Kosinski has. But I'm still very optimistic about this, and I'm just looking forward to getting more information on it.
Absolutely. So we will keep you guys updated as the story unfolds, as development goes forward. Fingers crossed it does get greenlit. So while this time it seems like there's more momentum, more force behind this attempt at it, it hasn't yet been greenlit. So let's just keep our fingers crossed.
The Tron coaster is almost built at Disney. It's already built in Shanghai Disney, but the one in Florida should be ready within a year or so. So hey, they've got incentive to bring this movie out to hype up their coaster and get more butts in the theme parks, especially after COVID has decimated their attendance, right? So
you get your arm ready for that vaccine, baby.
It's the perfect storm. We're getting COVID, the Tron cycle, and Tron 3 all at the same time, right? So
vaccine,
I mean, it's interesting you bring that, because one of the big criticisms that a lot of academics have when talking about Disneyfication is movies being made for theme parks. So let's hope that we get a film that's organic and artistically made, rather than something that's forced to market because of a theme park ride. And moving on to the next topic, AT&T is restructuring Warner Brothers, now Warner Media, and they launched their streaming platform, HBO Max, to underwhelming results, unfortunately. And so they've engaged in massive organizational changes, which have yielded some pretty jarring results, most notably in a slew of layoffs at DC Comics. So this is a very broad topic. it's one that's very technical, and we can really go detailed into it, but at this time we do not have the time to it. So let's just go through broad strokes, and let's have Christian lead us in this discussion, because I'm sure he has some very important things to say about this issue. Christian, go ahead.
You're right. I'll try to keep it broad. And there are three big things. I think it's DC Comics, DC Universe, and DC Direct. So those are the big broad strokes that, if you're talking about it, that's where a lot of these layoffs obviously are focused on. And with the community that we interact with, especially within the Snyder Cut community, I know a lot of people have been very happy with AT&T, and we should be, because of what's happening with HBO Max and things like that. However, I've said it before. Don't trust AT&T. You shouldn't trust Comcast. Don't trust Disney. These are still big companies, and media consolidation is not a good thing, guys. It's not, and it never has been. And when Disney took over Fox and every other studio they've taken over, people poo-pooed that, and rightfully so, and started talking about antitrust. You got to think of the same thing here when you have a company like AT&T coming in and taking Time Warner. That's a conversation for another day, so I'll keep my mouth shut on that. I think you guys already know where I stand there. However, here's the biggest thing. While apparently the layoffs themselves were not shocking, it's the size of the layoffs, I think, that came as more of a shock to the industry. 600 layoffs at Warner Media, including editors like Brian Cunningham and Mark Doyle, as well as Andy Katari, who is a major part of DC's rebranding and organization, as well as the establishment of the Black Label line a couple of years ago, which has been very popular. VP of Publishing Strategy and Support Services, Hank Canals, a couple of other people that led this very successful push into young adult and other kind of like younger focused graphic novels in recent years. Mm-hmm. You and I and Paul might not give a crap about that, but it was a decent sized sale arm that was there. Now, Jim Lee did say in a quote that they're not going to stop publishing comic books, that we're looking at everything, and we're looking at the bottom 20 to 25%. That's what they're looking at cutting over at DC Comics. Mm-hmm. Some of the lines that are getting cut, you and I would probably say it's not surprising. It's Suicide Squad, Young Justice, Constantine Hellblazer, Batgirl, just a couple of others. Now, these are not at the top level of DC's sales every month. However, what's so weird about it is some of them, like Suicide Squad, are very well received in the community. They're just not blowing it out in terms of dollars. But they are extremely well received in the critic community, as well as us, the readers. We seem to really like it as well. So now, wrapped around all this was the COVID pandemic. And in my home state of New Jersey, there is Diamond Distributors. Diamond Distributors is the only physical distribution house for Marvel, DC, a bunch of other comics. And they shut down during the pandemic to protect their workers. That really hurt the comic industry. Well, DC, Warner Brothers, AT&T made the decision after that, well, screw you guys, we're not using you anymore. It looks like they might be talking about potentially making the step to having everything distributed in-house, which in many ways would probably make a little bit of sense to them. But I'm not 100% sure what that's going to mean moving forward. But no matter what, bottom line is here, DC's output and their market share is going to contract. It's going to contract. That is the bottom line. I don't understand how you can see this any other way. DC's market share and their output is going to contract. Jim Lee said it himself. You're looking at 20 to 35% contraction. May not be a bad thing, but you're looking at more people will most likely get laid off. And it leads me to believe personally that AT&T might not necessarily know what they have when it comes to the comics division. I'm only going to mention two more things, Lupe, and then I'll bring it to you and Paul. A lot of times people, when I talk with them, they're like, well, comics don't matter. I think that's bunk. I really do. And one of the reasons I think it is because it's been growing since 2012. It was an $800 million industry in 2012. And in 2019, it grew to a $1.3 billion industry just for comics. That says nothing about toys, merchandising, collectibles, all the other stuff that helps a local comic book shop continue. And that stuff also serves as the baseline for a lot of stories that we see in the movies, the animation, the things that we love. We can fine with the director having their own take on it, but the point is a lot of times that stuff comes from a comic line first before it becomes a movie. So all these amazing comic book stories that we love, that's what's happening. We see it. That's where it's coming from. And this is not an industry that has been contracting. It's actually been growing. Yes, you can make multiple billion-dollar movies. Yes, we know that. And you're looking at a $1 billion, industry. I understand that. But it supports so much else in addition to the writers, pencilers, creators, all that kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And that's why I personally have an issue. The last two things that I will when we're talking about DC Direct and everything, DC Direct is their action figures, T-shirts, collectibles, all that kind of stuff. That's on its way out too, which I think that's going to wind up getting licensed now. They're probably going to license that stuff out, and they're going to let other people. The downside to that is you lose quality control when that's out. Now, it's probably better for them to just make a couple of bucks off licensing, but they're going to lose some of the quality control. DC Universe, by the way, guys, that getting shuttered, that's not a big surprise to me, and I don't think that should be a big surprise to anybody, because was DC Universe that exciting, number one? And number two, with HBO Max, why the hell do you need DC Universe? So, I think you can effectively move everything into the DC section of HBO Max. That's AT&T strategy, right? AT&T strategy is let's get HBO Max moving. So I guess for me, the bottom line is I'm happy with some of the things that I see. I'm glad that it looks like we'll have a one-stop shop for streaming. So HBO Max will blow up, hopefully, and be someplace where we can see animation from DC, and maybe we'll get the Infinite Earths things from DC that we're going to talk about later in the pod. Wonderful. I'm worried about the contraction of the comic industry, and while I continue to hear from people comics don't matter, I have figures in front of me that tell you that's not the truth. And it supports other aspects of the economy, not just the graphic novels and the books that get written. And that's what concerns me, that are we going to lose some of that? And I think we are. And I have a feeling that AT&T doesn't necessarily know what to do with its comics division. They're going to look at everything as dollar signs because they want everything to be HBO Max and movies. So maybe I'm wrong with that, guys. You can tell me if I'm taking it the wrong way. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm going off the deep end.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate, just to balance out the conversation, because I think that there are other perspectives to view this issue through. And this is one that we can do a really deep dive on. But I'm going to try to be brief.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I went long. I apologize.
No, that was perfect. That you set the table perfectly for us to have a really robust discussion about this. So I've been a huge fan of Warner Brothers as a studio for a very long time. Just their ethos, the way they conduct business, the way they make movies. Warner Brothers is known as a director's studio. That's
great
their
studio.
legacy.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That means that they subscribe to the old Hollywood world philosophy that you empower the director and his vision over everything else. So it's about art. It's about making these avant-garde, prestige, high craftsmanship, high quality films. That's why you see people like Christopher Nolan who've loved working there. People like David Fincher who've loved working there. People like Clint Eastwood who've loved working there. You see a lot of movies that come out of Warner Brothers tend to be movies that aren't generic, so to speak. They don't necessarily align with what's quote unquote popular or what's in high demand by the masses, but they tend to make these artistic movies that, break boundaries and become hits regardless. So they're always taking risks and always empowering directors and their directors studio, and they love auteur directors. Okay, so let's set the stage with that. Now, they've operated under this sort of way of doing business for forever. They're one of the last studios to hold on to this ethos, where you have a company like Disney who are very, very modern, who have taken advantage of technology, social media, the way you market things in this day and age. And because of that, Disney has been able to basically dance circles around Warner Brothers when it comes to making popular content and making money. Disney doesn't care or qualify for prestige awards, so that's not really the arena to compare them. But when you talk about, big blockbusters and that kind of thing, that cash cow that gets the studio's money, Warner Brothers can be looked at like a dinosaur, very slow to change, very slow to identify trends, very slow to take advantage of fast moving and developing and changing technology, etc., etc. Then comes in AT&T, and AT&T come from the world of technology. As a tech company, being agile, being very quick, being perceptive of technological changes, and even having foresight on technological changes has to be a core of who you are, has to be a core competency, or else you wouldn't even exist. So what they're doing is they're infusing this sort of new way of thinking into all of Warner Media. Then Warner Brothers is now called Warner Media. And what they're trying to do is, I think you're going to see a company that's going to better compete with a company like Disney, which I think it's about time. My hope and my belief is that all the artistic auteur attributes that Warner Brothers has will not die out. There's still going to be a company that, you know, houses directors like, for example, Zack Snyder, for example, David Fincher, who's on Netflix now, to be sincere, but Christopher Nolan, Clint Eastwood is still there. Todd Phillips has a great working relationship with them, etc., etc. So, going along with this, you know, long-winded answer, AT&T, what they're doing with the restructuring and layoffs has to do with HBO Max. And they've identified a truth, which is that the future of entertainment is direct to consumer, the direct to consumer model. And if you're slow to change, if you do not get on board, you are fighting a losing battle. It's like you know, Kodak, when they kept on holding on to photochemical film rather than, you know, throwing all their weight behind digital, like Blockbuster, who kept on holding on to their physical stores rather than knowing that digital was the way to go. So they're throwing everything behind that, and that's where all these changes are. That's where we're seeing a lot of these changes. For example, you talked about, obviously, like DC Universe is a smart thing to do. So with DC Comics in particular, I don't think it's as much doom and gloom as we think. I think that an outside company has come in and has seen that there's a lot of fat on the organization, and they've trimmed off what they need to trim off. Now, we can't say, the thing I think about Warner Brothers and where they were is, as I said, they were a company that was bloated, was slow. They were like this huge dinosaur that just couldn't react well and couldn't, you know, move well. And then you have this company that's super agile and super advanced. And yeah, I think that there's going to be growing pains, but I think that a lot of the things they're doing. So, for example, I hear that they're not going to be issuing single comics of some lines, I think, and you're only going to be able to buy trade paperbacks in terms of like physical, and that points to the fact that they're seeing that digital comics is something that's growing and something that probably is more cost effective for them to put money into. I'm a person who actually waits for trade paperbacks. I actually don't buy single comics every week, and we have to remember that the number of people who buy these it's a very, very small number, and a business is not going to be nostalgic or emotional about the way things used to be and where things used to come from, because if you are, that's how businesses like Kodak and businesses like Blockbuster end up being dinosaurs, and their bones are on display in the museum of failed businesses that once had it big.
Yeah, and I
So
think you're raising a good point too, and I apologize for
no, go ahead.
interrupting you. One of the points in there that I absolutely agree with you on is, you were talking about WB being bloated, and DC Comics has had, if you take a look at them over the last couple of decades, they have a famously high overhead. They are a bloated comic company. They have always been a bloated comic company, and they got this big Burbank headquarters and everything like that. So like a one comics line, their profit numbers would be okay. For DC, no way, no way. They need higher profits. So, if you're AT&T, you're watching your investment. You got to come in there and be like, okay, look, these lines have to make a profit, or I'm sorry, we got to chop it. So, yeah, from a creative aspect, I am concerned, and I know what you're saying. You're saying it's probably not as doom and gloom, and you're probably right. By the way, you are probably right. But from a business perspective, absolutely, AT&T's got to come in here and be like, you guys are running out of control. So, and look for the future. I interrupted you, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. I hope the thing is just I don't want to go too deep into like DC Comics, but I have not been very happy with a lot of things that they've been doing recently.
I get it. Yeah.
And I'm an avid comic reader. I read a lot of Image comics and indie comics these days, and then I wait to see if a trade paperback collection or a graphic novel kind of breaks through. But a lot of stuff that I see, they keep on spinning their wheels. For example, Superman is back to wearing his underwear on the outside of Batman. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's fine if you can do that. But to me, that just points to where they are. They're not able to move forward, not able to evolve. They just keep on spinning their wheels and being in the same. And a lot of the stories do that. I've stopped, reading the comics regularly because I'm seeing stuff that I've seen for years, the same messages, the same tropes, nothing new. So maybe it might be good for someone to shake things up. I don't think that comics will ever die. I'm happy, obviously, Jim Lee. Jim Lee is a great guy. Yeah. Obviously, we get emotional when people lose their jobs, and I just hope that those people are able to land on their feet. For example, I'm sure Image Comics would be a great place for many of those people to, band together and make their own comics, because they give people the opportunity to make money off their creations, which I guess this double-edged sword, because you're not as reliant on big names, so you have to really roll up your sleeves and make something that can break through. But I think the thing to also point to, and I've gone on for way too long, is that the reason why this has happened is because the launch of HBO Max was not good. We can't dance around the topic. We can't try to be like, oh, HBO Max is trying. They had a terrible launch for many reasons, and the overseer Robert Greenblatt was fired because of it, basically. And he's actually the guy, I think, that spearheaded the acquisition of the Snyder Cut. So that's something interesting to see. Although Jason Kilar is also a huge fan of the whole Snyder Cut movement. So we'll see where HBO Max goes in the future. But it seems like Jason Kilar means business. Like, he's come on and he was like, look, HBO Max didn't perform. The quote is that this is a transformation of making things better. Not because we needed to adjust anything, but rather because we're aspiring to get even better than the HBO Max launch was, to get even better than Warner Media has traditionally performed. Yeah. And that's coming from one of their executives, not Jason Kilar in particular, John Stevens, AT&T's chief financial officer. So anyway, this bears watching, especially for HBO Max. I think that's where everything basically revolves around HBO Max. And that can be a scary thing. That can be a good thing, depending on how you look at it. As we look at how theatrical windows have been shortened, big movies are being put on Disney Plus and all that kind of stuff. Direct to consumer is the future. That is the truth. However nostalgic you want to be about cinema, about comics and novels, and even in the future, I can see a situation where video games are going to be bundled with your direct to consumer like streaming services, and you're gonna actually have like video games on like HBO Max. I 100% can see it. You
Yeah,
heard
I
it
can
here
see that.
first.
Yeah,
So,
no, I hear you.
yeah. So, Paul, did anything we discuss spark any anything? Do you have anything to say?
I mean, you guys covered it pretty thoroughly. I don't have a ton to say. I mean, I think, you guys have covered that this is sort of the direction of the future. And, I had a brief sort of flirtation with comic collection again, and I'm just sort of on, or sorry, again, after like 25, 30 years away from it. I mean, I did most of my comic collecting back when I was, I don't know, like around 10 years old, maybe like ages like 8 through 13 probably would have been back when I collected comics. And it was after BVS, after watching the Ultimate Edition of BVS, I tried to get back into comics, and I went into my local comic shop and thought, you know what, I want to support this. This is something I want to support because I mean, Snyder's movies brought my love of these characters back after so many years, and I thought, maybe this is something I can introduce my daughter to eventually. I feel like supporting a local business, and you go into those comic shops and you look at the number of comics they have sitting on the shelves, and I don't see that many people buying comics, individual issues, and you wonder how they're surviving. And I thought, you know what, I'd like to support this. So I got my pull list together. I got Batman, I got Detective, I got however many versions of Justice League there were, and collected a few Star Wars comics, and started bringing those in every week, and I couldn't keep up with them, the individual issues. But I like the idea. I mean, it's a nostalgic thing for me to want to get that pristine individual issue, first printing with a backboard in its plastic sleeve, and file it away in a box, and hope that one day I'll get back around to reading it. And, when I was a kid, I used to remember coming home with my bag full of comics, and I couldn't wait to read them, and I'd sit there and I'd read them all the night I got them. And now I've got like 3 or 4 boxes of comics downstairs. I don't think I've read more than like 10 of them. I read my Darth Vaders, and I read my Batman Damned, and that's it. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff, like weeks worth of reading down there that I haven't got a chance to get into. So I wasn't getting value for it, and eventually, I got turned off by a lot of these comic creatives disparaging the Snyder movies. I mean, his movies were what brought me back to comics, and the more we had to deal with these creatives crapping on his films openly, it blew me away, and it turned me off. And eventually I started keeping a list of creatives who I did not want to support. And eventually that list got so long that it just became such a pain in the ass that I just started canceling. I canceled everything except my Star Wars comics. And I started thinking, well, I'll go do the trade paperback thing. And I have bought a few trade paperbacks. I did Batman Hush and The Long Halloween and Death of the Family and The Court of Owls. And some of them I like more than others. But I haven't, I mean, if these are the best that it has to offer these days, I'm not super blown away by it. I mean, I think the thing I enjoyed the most was Batman Damned. But what I realized is that I really have kind of outgrown a lot of this material. And to your point, I think I would look more towards the stories that you find in these indie comics. I think that might be more my speed now. Because when you think about what I've really enjoyed in comics, what really stuck with me, it's things like The Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns. And a lot of the other stuff, I don't get this, this intense wow factor that a lot of people seem to get from them. So, I've gradually gone to almost collecting nothing except for the Black Label ones, which I was still buying. And I haven't been into my local comic shop since everything shut down for COVID. I don't know what I've got sitting in my bag. I got to go in there and pick it up. But I was down to really collecting only the Black Label stuff, like the White Knight and as I say, like the Batman Damned, and there's been the Superman one, and then there's the Wonder Woman one that's out right now, and I haven't been able to keep up on any of that stuff either, as I say, except for Batman Damned. But it's a struggling industry, and the creatives aren't helping it. By being so just so petulant online. And in their defense, there are some really good ones. Like, I've been impressed by Dan Jurgens. I've been impressed by I've been really wowed by Liber Mayhew. That was not someone I'd ever heard of back when I used to collect.
Do you know who Phil Jimenez is?
Oh, I can't stand. Yeah, I can't stand Phil Jimenez. But the other guy, the other Jimenez, Jorge Jimenez, he seems pretty good. So you got to be careful when you're not buying Jimenez comics. It's okay to buy the Jorge Jimenez. It's not okay to buy the Phil Jimenez. But Phil Jimenez, Gail Simone, Nicola Scott, the Jamal Igle guy. I mean, these are people that Dan Slott, like people, and I don't even know how many of them work for DC. But eventually, this list got so long of these people I didn't want to purchase that I started saying, well, who do I like? Who do I know I can trust? And then you got the, Lieber Mayhew is the guy I absolutely love his stuff, anything he draws. But I mean, his stuff is so, it must take him a week to paint a single frame, So I don't think he puts out a high volume of stuff. Azarello, I still like Grant Morrison. I still like Dan Jurgens, as I said. I like Brett Booth is someone that's been a big supporter of the Snyder Cut online and grown to appreciate him.
Jim Lee, of course.
Jim Lee, of course, right. Jeff Johns, obviously. I'm going to have to tell my comic book shop, tell them not to put 3 Jokers in my bag, But that's the kind of thing. Like, I'm in the position now where
I think I'm buying the entire run of that along with all the
on the one hand, you got
covers.
well, you got Fabok, right? Which, I mean, as far as I know, he's okay, but I'm not convinced. I'm a little. Some of these guys that don't say anything, I don't trust them either, just because we've been so burned by so many of these guys. But I have nothing specifically to indicate that Fabok's anti-Snyder, other than the fact that he's working with Johns, and a lot of these guys have. I mean, Jim Lee included. So, but even the fact that that's a conscious piece of your buying decision, the fact that that enters your mind, like, oh, hold on, I better check who's involved in this issue. It spoiled me on the industry. So I think it really is at the point where there's a few names. If there's names I know I like and they're doing a run, maybe I'll wait and pick up a trade paperback if I hear it's good. But I can see why that industry's dying, right? I can see why it's struggling. And really what I love now is that more adult, mature adaptation that's grown with me. Like, I'm not a 10-year-old anymore. And even though the comics have, I'm not saying all these comics are for 10-year-olds. Some of them have aged up. A lot of them are more, I would describe them as late teen content, mid-teen to late teen content. A lot of the DC stuff, probably more mid-teen content. But it doesn't feel like it's aged with me, right? Whereas the movies, at least what Snyder was trying to do, absolutely felt like it aged with me. The Watchmen absolutely felt like it was for my age back when I read it. I read it right when Watchmen came out in 2009. The film, I mean. I read the comics right before the film came out, and that felt like it was age appropriate. But I find that a lot of the material just wasn't, and that's where I was optimistic about Black Label. But it sounds like Black Label's cooked now. Is that right? Is that what you guys are hearing as well?
Black Label is still going, but
is it?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, they're not canceling it. But the person who started it, or one of the guys that started, he's gone. So I don't know what that means moving forward for them. I would only count, and I don't want to, we have a lot more to talk about, so I don't want to keep this going, but like I said, I actually do disagree that it's dying, because the industry is not dying. I don't believe it is. And the numbers don't necessarily pan that out. I think
I would say the comic
ago it was. Well,
some of the local comic book store is dying. Like,
they've consolidated.
I see people lounging in our big box bookstores reading graphic novels for free. That's where I see the most traffic.
My local comic shop is doing great. I mean, COVID hurt him because he had to close because he couldn't get the physical traffic coming into his store. So he moved everything online. And now that he's opened his doors back again, I asked him the other day, he said, I'm doing fine. He said, I kept the doors open. Now with everything, now that we're back and you can come in and have a bunch of people in there wearing a mask and distance a little bit, he said, I'm doing okay. And I got my orders every week. He said, I'm doing good. He's happy. He's actually doing okay. Now, I just think there was a consolidation that happened, which of course goes back to the conversation we had at the beginning. The question I would ask for you guys, and you guys might fucking hate me for asking this, but like, I wonder how many people did what Paul did, because most people I spoke with could have given a shit if somebody insulted Snyder. They didn't. If they want to read a comic line, they're reading a comic line. If they want to read if they follow a creator, they're following that creator. So I do wonder what that number was, and did they burn themselves? I don't know. I don't know.
But that goes into our entire conversation about. You can say that the number of people who wouldn't read some comic lines, or who are turned off by comics because of the attitude of creators, is very small. But at the same time, the number of people who read comics is very small.
Yeah, I think
it's all relative, right?
I think there's
it's
more
all relative.
Yeah,
it's all relative.
Because the local guy that I talked to, he absolutely said he's got a chunk of people that come in because they speculate. They speculate. They're saying, I'll buy these five.
I'm not saying that nobody reads comics. I never said that. I said relatively, like, you have a valid point in saying that the number of people who will be turned off from some comic lines because of the attitude of creators is very small. That's a valid point. But at the same point, somebody who makes the point that the comic book readership is relatively small, valid points as well.
Yeah, it's valid.
It's all relative, right? It's all relative.
Yeah, there's more people that are going to go out and watch a movie than read a comic.
Exactly. I think at the end of the day, we are deeply emotional and a little bit we feel for people losing their jobs and their livelihood. We feel for industries who are going through a difficult time. Our hopes and our dreams are with them to, get gainful employment very soon, return back to a place of happiness and doing what they love and being paid well for it. And the fallout of this remains to be seen, as we will always continue to, drum into you guys' ears is if you want to know what's going on with Warner Media, take a look at HBO Max. That's the fountainhead from which every decision flows. So hopefully they get it right. They get it right. But what I'm a bit happy about is that I know they're in it for the long haul, and they're going to do whatever it takes to make it successful. And I think that it's only going to benefit us as consumers, because it means that we're going to get a diverse slate of content, and it's going to be good for us because, for example, without the focus on HBO Max, we probably wouldn't have gotten the Snyder Cut. We definitely wouldn't have got the Snyder Cut in this sort of beefy, bulked up, hit the gym, steroided up version that we're going to get.
It surpassed our wildest expectations when this started.
Absolutely did.
I wanted Ray Fisher in his pajamas on green screen as a special feature on my Justice League Blu-ray. That's all I wanted. That's all. It's 70% done VFX. That's all I was asking for.
Yep. So yep, and we're getting more. All right. So going from that bit of that difficult topic to talk about, let's go on to the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts because Kansas is about to go bye-bye. We have your DC fandom primer. We're going to get you suited and booted and ready to take on the 24-hour, one-of-a-kind, global virtual fan fest that's called DC Fandom. We're going to tell you about the intricate details that you might have missed for the big splashy headlines, and we'll let you know how we set our personal schedules for the event. We're going to let you know what to expect, also what not to expect. All around, this is the hype train. Get on board for what promises to be a blast of a time. So before we get into it, there's a bit of information that people need to know. When DC Fandom was conceived, it was set up as a one-time only 24-hour event. And it was going to be on the 22nd of August / the 23rd, depending on where you are on the globe. However, after they launched the online site and people started making their schedules, they started to take a look at the feedback, see how, each and every one of us was moving out in these streets, and they saw that everybody was just going to be at the Hall of Heroes. Okay, so the event is structured as a universe with connecting worlds, and in each world something unique is happening. So you have the central hub, which is the Hall of Heroes, which has like the main big ticket items. You have your big movies, splashy reveals, that kind of thing. Then you got Watchverse, you got Uverse, Kidsverse, Insiderverse, and Funverse. All those are more niche. They have panels and with artists, stuff on history of characters, stuff that's tailored for kids, stuff that has to do with signings, stuff that has to do with buying merch, and so on and so forth. But as you can see from what I've said, the main event will be the Hall of Heroes. And so they noticed that people would just sign up for the Hall of Heroes and would kind of leaving the other verses of the fandom kind of lonely and without participants. So they decided to split the event into two parts. You're going to have two events, 2 separate days, and they're going to be 2 weekends apart. So the first will be the Hall of Heroes, and that's going to be on the 22nd of August / 23rd, the same date as was as when it was set up. Then the other one's going to be 2 weekends after that, two or three, which will be the weekend of September the 12th. And in that one, you'll be able to explore the Watchverse, the Uverse, Kidsverse, Insiderverse, Filmverse, and this one is more focused on the multiverse concept of the DC universe. So let's get into a primer discussion. Let's get into a preview of DC Fandome. And the first thing I'd like to know from you guys is, what are you looking forward to most of all? Let us know a little bit about your schedule that you have set up on DCFandom.com. And let's start with Paul. Give us the highlights.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, obviously the big draw is the Snyder Cut trailer, the 2-minute Snyder Cut, 2-minute plus Snyder Cut trailer that Grace Randolph has said she's seen and that we're going to be getting. And we got a 24-second teaser today, which just whets the appetite. So I really can't wait to see that Snyder Cut trailer and then the accompanying panel. So that for me is the one can't miss highlight of this thing. But as I go through my schedule, I mean, I'm like most people. I'm in here for probably about 2/3 of the Hall of Heroes on day one. So I mean, the Wonder Woman 84 panel, we got the trailer coming. Of course, I want to see that. I mean, I want to check that out. It's not necessarily I'm not necessarily super optimistic about Wonder Woman 84, but I want to see it. The Warner Brothers game in Montreal, Warner Brothers Games Montreal announcement. Yeah, for sure, I'll watch that. I mean, that's these games are stunningly realistic looking now. Bringing you into the world of Batman. We've been getting teases all week, so can't wait to see that one. Sandman Universe. I'm signed up for that one. I just finished the Sandman audiobook. Really enjoyed it. It's more of an audio play than an audiobook. Really entertaining, easy to listen to. If you've never tried an audiobook, I'd say, give this one a try. If you've tried audiobooks and don't find they're for you necessarily, as I say, this is more of an audio play, and I thought it was really easy to listen to. Multiverse 101 panel, sure, I'll check that out. Hopefully that'll give us some guidance as to where they're going with the future of DC, not only in comics, but in, on the various screens. Introducing the Flash, well, my excitement level just spiked for the Flash today. So we'll talk about that more later, but absolutely going to watch that one now. Suicide Squad panel, I'm not super enthused, but I'm still going to check it out. I assume we're going to get some footage in a trailer there. Surprise DC Comics panel, I mean, God, you hope for the best with these surprises, and they had a to-be-announced panel that got removed and replaced with a Titans TV panel, which broke my heart because that's the one where you're hoping for Air Cut or Batfleck announcement. But this surprise DC Comics panel, I'm guessing that's comics related, not TV related, or movie related, I should say, which would be most appealing. But I'll check it out. Then we of course got our Snyder Cut panel that I mentioned. Black Adam, I'm excited to hear what they're going to do with that. I think Black Adam could be really good or really bad, depending on whether or not they go for lean into mythology, dark and serious, or whether they go for slapstick, comedy like Shazam. And then the Shazam panel, I just want to hear Zachary Levi apologize. Apparently he's going to talk about Zach's cut, so I'm there to see what he says. And then Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Hey, that sounds interesting. That video game. I mean, as you guys know, I just stocked up on the 3 Batman games for the PS3. I've yet to play them, but they're in my library ready to go. So I got some catching up to do. But if these games have evolved from PS3 to PS4 to PS5, I can only imagine how good this is going to look. So I'm curious to see where they go with this. And then the Batman panel. I know some of our fandom is divided on how they feel about the Matt Reeves Batman, but I think this one looks dark, grounded, serious. It potentially is going to be R-rated. I want to see where he's going with this. So bring it on. I'm looking forward to the Batman panel. And you can tell they've kind of bookmarked, not bookmarked, but what am I trying to say? They've sort of started and finished with what they consider to be their heavy hitters, Wonder Woman 84 and the Batman, and then they've given you the Snyder Cut kind of in the middle, and then you got a nice run from Snyder Cut right through to Batman at the end. So it's going to be a pretty full day. Without getting into the details of the other stuff, I was actually excited about doing the other stuff in some of the gaps with my daughter. Like in particular, I'd gone through and I'd bookmarked some of the stuff from the kids verse for her. They had stuff on how to draw. They had stuff on the amusement park rides around the world. There was some stuff I was interested in, like the music and things like that, which I won't get into too much detail right now, but there's some really, I thought there was enough interesting stuff to keep us quite busy in between the most exciting elements of these panels during that 8 hours. And I'd kind of slotted a day for us to do this together. Her on her laptop, me on my computer. We'd watch the trailers together. She'd do the activities. Maybe we'd do some stuff together. Obviously, that part's been moved out now. So it's an interesting decision. I'm not sure it's for the best, because if everyone was signing up for Hall of Heroes, which is the most interesting part, but I was still going to check some of this other stuff out in between. Are people going to be as prone to go back on September 12th just for the other stuff when you don't have all the exciting stuff that's in Hall of Heroes? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. See, I almost wonder whether it's more technology based. Like maybe they weren't as ready as they needed to be, and it just didn't get through the project management process, get it developed and tested.
Just to answer what you asked before you go on to another point. I think that if they had their way, they probably would have moved the main event, which is what people usually do in things like these, right? You go with the starter pack, and then the main, you save the best for last. But I think that if they had moved Hall of Heroes to 2 weeks after, it would have made people disappointed. It would have. There would have been a backlash. There would have been a backlash.
Yeah, I don't think once they committed to it, they couldn't move Hall of Heroes 3 days beforehand.
Exactly. Not even 3 days. Not even just 3 days beforehand. Just in terms of the excitement level, the anticipation, the wait-in. Like the reason why they split it was because they've seen the demand for one vastly outweighs the other. That means that the demand for one is high. And as we've seen with stuff that we've been following, for example, like The Last of Us 2, you got to be careful. Like once expectations are set, if you start to move things around, people start to get resentment starts to build. It's just a thing that customers have when they have an expectation and it's not met. People get resentful. So maybe next year you may get the satellite versus first, and then get the Hall of Heroes as the main event, best for last. But for this year, I think that this was actually like the smart decision to make, and I think it will still be successful because I think there's just going to be a feel good feeling, and I think it's going to linger, and people are going to return to the Fandome just to check out some stuff, even if they don't stay for long. People are still going to check out some stuff because I think that the feel good feeling from the 22nd is going to be just too much.
Well, to your point, Lupe, I think that I would have been more prone to stay if they'd kept it on the same weekend, but maybe extended the availability of the other one, or split it up so that you have some Hall of Heroes towards the end of the day on Saturday and the end of the day of Sunday, but beforehand you can still go explore the other things while you're waiting, or explore in between. The question for me is, am I going to come back and make a separate trip? And I might, but I definitely would have been here, and especially when I had time to kill in between, like panels that I was most interested in. Because I mean, let's be honest, I'm most interested in the trailers, the footage, the trailers, the really sort of meaty news. I'm not necessarily that into hearing James Gunn talk about Suicide Squad or introduce his whole cast, or watch the cast of Wonder Woman 84 play Werewolf 84, whatever that is. I don't care about that. I care about the trailers. Give me the footage, give me the news that I'm most interested in, and in between, I would have been happy to go check out some of the other stuff while I was killing time, right? Will I come back and make the separate trip? That's the question. So I think there might be better ways to break it up next year, and why not use the entirety of the weekend? Why not start it Saturday at 10 a.m. and finish it Sunday at 8 p.m.? I mean, why does it have to be 1-to-1, right? You can stretch it out. You can put a bit at the end of Saturday, a bit at your big headliners, half a day Saturday, half a day Sunday, and give people time to browse in between. I don't know. They'll work it out, though. I'm sure they'll learn from this year. And I think there's enough positive hype about this, and I think it's still going to be successful enough that this won't be a one-time thing. I think this is going to be something that succeeds and probably grows and gets better each year.
Agreed. Christian, tell us about your schedule for DC Fandome. What do we have in store for us? What do you think is hot in these streets?
I'm agree with you guys, by the way, before we talk about the schedule, that this is a first run, and I don't know exactly how it's going to work out having the second date, but they're probably going to learn a couple things, and this is a whole new direct-to-consumer thing that they're trying, and man, this is a shot across the bow to Comic-Con. It's a huge shot across the bow to them. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. But
no, this is the right place to have the conversation. But go ahead.
No, and I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I just think that hey, this is the first time they're doing it, so they're going to learn a couple things from this. And you guys did just talk about maybe it was the wrong move to move, or maybe it was the right move to move stuff over to the separate date in September, because most of the stuff I'm interested in is definitely in the Hall of Heroes. But there are some creative panels that are going to be in the Insiderverse that they have talked about that I also am interested in. Some graphics panels as well as some art panels that they're going to be. So if they had interspersed that throughout 2 days, maybe 3 days, I think from my own personal perspective, I would have been into that. But Saturday is going to be a crazy day for me. I know that. So the majority of stuff that I want is definitely Hall of Heroes. And I am going to probably be watching the encores through Sunday because I just know Saturday is going to be crazy. So they'll figure this out. They're definitely going to figure this out. But they're onto something here. I really do believe that they're onto something here, especially as we start talking about direct to consumer is probably where they need to go. There on my schedule, there are 2 comic panels that I'm really interested in. Number one is, I think it's at 4 p.m., is Legacy of the Bat. And that one is really cool for me. That's going to outline how the franchise is constantly expanding, and they haven't announced any panelists yet, but what they said is quote unquote key talent from Batman comics, along with representatives from Batman games, animation, TV, and they just said they're going to try to make it both enjoyable and informative at the same time. So from a comic perspective, Legacy of the Bat is a biggie. That one I really want to see. And at 4:45, Paul said it already, the surprise DC panel. And surprise reveals are a big part of Comic-Con and all the other stuff that they do. And it looks like what they're trying to do is kind of chart the future for some of DC's heroes and villains here. So the surprise panel, that's a biggie. So just from a comic perspective, those 2 are absolutely on my schedule. And if I miss them, they're on the encore. So they are there. I know the Snyder Cut community is kind of divided when it comes to Wonder Woman 84. Whatever, cancel me if you want. I'm really pumped about that movie. I really want to see it, and I want to see it with my sister because she's such a huge Wonder Woman fan, and it's just a cool part of the experience. So hopefully we can get to it with COVID. So the 84 panel is absolutely one that I'm looking forward to. Batman, Beyond Batman, that's a big one that I'm also looking forward to as well. I have Joker put on a happy face. I have that one on my schedule. I think that's going to be a cool one. I'm really psyched for, guys, the voices behind the cowl panel for Batman, if the one that's at 5:10. I really am psyched up for that one as well. I think that should be a good one. So I got that one on my panel. I do have the Snyder Cut one. I just being honest with you, it's not the top of my list, but I do have it on there because I absolutely want to see the trailer and I want to hear what they have to say in that panel. And to round it out, I have Black Adam, I have Aquaman, the Ask Harley Quinn panel is on there because I think that's going to be humorous. I am absolutely looking forward to 2 panels to round it out. The Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game. And yeah, I'm with Paul. I have been very intrigued by the Batman. And I've agreed with Lupe's arguments that part of the Batman looks like it's taking a step backwards. And I've agreed with other people that think it looks like it's something intriguing because it's going back to the detective of Batman. So I want to see a little bit more of this. We saw a little bit of the Jim Lee poster that was created and everything. So we can talk about that more. I think it's just because I want to see more. Give me more. I still have reserved judgment on this thing, and maybe we'll find something that's going to completely blow me away here, or maybe I'm going to be turned around in the other direction. But for me, those are the biggies. Those are the ones that I have on my schedule, and I think I'm probably going to wind up watching some of them on Saturday night in the encores or Sunday for the encores. So those are the ones that I got.
Yeah. For me, my schedule is very light. And then on the day, I'm just going to intuit and flow between panels and see what tickles my fancy. But the things that I cannot miss, and I advise people to really these are like the staples, are the Warner Brothers Games Montreal announcement, which has already leaked. It's going to be Court of Owls. And I think it's going to be Gotham Knights. So Batman and Nightwing against the Court of Owls. Then obviously the Snyder Cut of Justice League panel. I think that this is to me, this is like the pinnacle of DC fandom. For me, I think it's just going to be an explosive panel. I think everybody's going to pay attention to this one. Haters and lovers. Everybody's gonna want to hear from Zack Snyder. It's his triumphant return. So we'll talk more about those. The Black Adam panel. Definitely one that you guys should tune into, whether you liked Shazam or no. I personally thought Shazam was low quality. Even the director himself has said something to the effect of, he wishes he could have done better with like action scenes, and for a sequel, he's looking forward to stepping his game up. I wish him luck on that. But The Rock is someone I've been very excited about being in the DCEU. So it's going to be interesting to see whether, as Paul said, I'm with Paul 100%, whether this has that epic, gritty, hard feel that the image of The Rock, sort of presents, right? Or whether it's more in line with Shazam, which would be a disappointment for me. Might not be for other people, but we don't know enough about this to not be curious, right? So the curiosity factor.
Until we hear otherwise, I want to know what's going on here.
Absolutely. The curiosity factor is on 10. Then Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. I really want to see this one for the simple reason that I am tired. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired of Batman games. So if you just give me any crusty, day-old morsels of anything else, although you can make the argument that Suicide Squad are from the Batman universe, blah, 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 whoomty whoomp. However, still, it's not a Batman game. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. And obviously, they have the big guy on the poster with the Suicide Squad target symbol. Like that looks very intriguing. And Warner Brothers with their A1 titles, their A+ titles, they've done a good job. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this live up to the legacy of it. Then the Batman panel, I'm very, very curious about this. As we said and we've discussed a lot, there's such a juxtaposition with what we've seen and what we know of the creators. Visually, it looks like they're taking steps back, but in terms of story, Matt Reeves is someone that I have complete faith in. I absolutely love his Apes movies. Absolutely adore them. I think that they are modern classics, damn near masterpieces. And every time he talks about his filmmaking process, his writing process, it's always elevated, eloquent, always insightful, always deep. He's definitely no Jeff Johns, if you know what I mean. So those are the panels that I feel are must-sees. Everything else, you can make an argument for whether you want to see if you're a fan or not, but I feel that these ones are the ones that you have to mark on your calendars, and then whatever else comes will be icing on the cake. So, guys, let's talk about some dark horse or under the radar kind of panels that you want to point our audience to. Let's start with Paul. Is there something that's deep in the weeds that you think people haven't might not have paid attention to that you want to make a case for?
Are we talking Hall of Heroes only, or are we talking deep in some of this other stuff?
This is just for what's happening. So the focus of this discussion is just on what's happening on the 22nd in the Hall of.
I don't think there's anything that interests me that I think other people won't notice. The only thing that maybe would fall into that category, maybe there's two things. The to be announced one that got removed, I was pretty excited about, and the Sandman Universe one, which I already talked about. And I don't think there's much more for me to say on that, so I guess I kind of jumped the gun a little bit with my elaborating on that. But I think that's maybe the one that might fly under the radar if you are into those kind of comics and you're at all interested in the audio play that they've put out in Audible. I think that's an interesting one. But otherwise, for me, the ones I'm interested in are obvious, and these other sort of niche ones are probably not my thing.
Okay. All right. And Christian, is there anything that you think is an Easter egg, a dark horse, a Trojan horse, maybe?
I don't know if it's dark horse, but Easter egg might be might be it. I would keep an eye on 3 panels. You already mentioned the Games Montreal, the Warner Brothers Games Montreal announcement. Keep an eye on that, because if you're a gamer, I think they're gonna make an announcement there that you're gonna, like you just said, come on with the Batman. Holy shit! I think they're gonna give us something else, and you want to keep an eye on that. There are 2 that we should watch, and I think number 1, Paul mentioned the Multiverse 101 panel, and you know what? With everything that's happening right now, with DCU doing its own thing, with the Snyderverse doing its own thing, with the CW doing its own thing, I would keep an eye on that. I would absolutely watch that panel. And the other one that you want to watch comes, I don't want to talk too much about it because I know we're going to discuss it in a minute. But with the news that got released with Ben Affleck, watch the Flash panel. Watch that panel, because Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, where are we going? Are we doing Flashpoint? What's happening? So I really think that those 2 panels, especially if you're into the movies and you're into the HBO Max and the Snyderverse, I think you got to keep an eye on those 2 panels, because there might be something going on there that even if they don't announce something, they're going to give you an idea of a direction that might be a bit of an Easter egg and might get you excited for the future.
Absolutely. I think those are really good tips. You stole the multiverse from me. That was the one. Yeah, that was the one I was really like. And Paul, so you're hearing both of us speak on it. The little blurb that they put out for is, get schooled in this engaging refresher course on the creation of the multiverse with DC Chief Creative Officer / Publisher Jim Lee, Warner Brothers Pictures President of DC-based film production Walter Hamada, and Berlanti Productions founder / DC TV mega producer Greg Berlanti. It's a 30-minute panel. So yeah, I think that this is very, very important for everything that we've been prognosticating about, speculating about, all our theorizing and all that kind of stuff, talking about the future of where these are going. This might be the panel that puts a complete and absolute stop to Christians saying they're throwing shit against the wall. Or it could be a beautiful mess, and you could be like, they're throwing even more shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. So I think it's very intriguing. I think that I'm not too hot on Walter Hamada and Greg Berlanti as storytellers, but if Jim Lee is involved, then you definitely got my ear. Now, I don't want to sound like one of those people who used to talk about Jeff Johns, like, oh, if Jeff Johns is involved, but Jim Lee is someone whose aesthetic and whose ideas I have liked. So at least I'm interested, and it'll be interesting to see where they go. Also, obviously, we want to know, where does the Snyderverse lie in this? With the news that we heard about Flash and Batman, which we'll discuss later, what's all? I think we're going to get a lot more clarity on here, because I want to know, how is the multiverse segmented? Is it segmented across their different silos / studios? So is there going to be a verse on HBO Max and another world in studios, and then another world in video games, or is everything just interweaving in and out in terms of where we can see the stories? For example, Greg Berlanti is prepping a Green Lantern movie, but does that have to be connected to everything else that's on HBO Max, or does it, is it possible that on HBO Max we can have different DC Universe movies? So these are all things that we need a little bit of clarity, and good luck to them breaking down quantum physics and multiverse theory to us, but we are all ears for it. Also, one that I think is quite intriguing and interesting, and I probably should add it to my calendar, but I'm on the lookout for it, is the CNN panel about today's heroes in the age of coronavirus. And CNN is a property of Warner Media, so it's interesting to see this sort of cross-pollination, this sort of crossover. And I'm just curious to see how this is executed. If the fact that they have these different platforms under this conglomerate, if this makes each of them better, right? Or if it just turns out to be some sort of silly, forced mess. I'm really curious to check it out. and see what they do. It sounds intriguing because you look at the lineup and it's all your typical comic book stuff, right? And then you see CNN Heroes. What? So that's one that I think, as Paul talked about, like downtime, this could be one that might be interesting for people to check out. I'm sure people who are a bit younger minded, probably don't watch news, are not too interested in documentary type stuff, might not find this intriguing. But for anyone who enjoys a little bit of real world news, commentary, analysis, this might be something that might break up the monotony and the deluge and the barrage and the complete bombardment of our brain cells by this DC Comics goodness. This might be something that breaks that up a little bit. I'm very interested to see how it goes, and it's going to be hosted by Anderson Cooper. So this is just funny. Anderson Cooper doing DC Comics stuff, I wonder who brought the idea to his table. He must have been like, "Oh my god!"
It's a really interesting cross-pollination, and I know people get themselves all political, like Fox News versus CNN, and stop it. We can cut that shit out. CNN is a legit news organization. Anderson Cooper is a damn good journalist.
Yeah,
it's that simple. And this, I think, is, we are talking about heroes, and we're talking about Superman and Batman and the Holy Trinity and everything like that. But if people tune into something like this, we've all seen it in any country that we live in, and anybody who's listening to us right now, there are true heroes out there that are on the front lines fighting COVID every single day, putting their lives on the line to make sure that people recover from this fucking disease. And it's a really interesting thing that they decided to put that in there. And I'm with you. I hope it's not something that's throwaway. Like, this is something that's really legit, and they do a good job with it, and they highlight these people, and it's not corny. Don't make it corny. Like, we're going to take a break here in talking about Superman, and we really want to highlight people that are true heroes. Don't make it corny, please. That's all I ask. Yeah.
Absolutely. You said it best. I think us as comic book fans, and sometimes we get lost in these fictional worlds of storytelling, which are amazing, but we should not forget that they're metaphors and myths for real life. So you always have to remember about actual heroes in real life, and we have to, pay attention to that, and just not let escapism take us away from the realities of the world. And comic book fans and fans of genre content tend to be some of the most passionate about about good causes, right? When they're able to tap into it. So
we are passionate.
I hope that this can inspire people, and I hope that it can it can broaden our horizons and sort of really do a good job of tying these fictional, mythological, metaphoric worlds to the real life issues that they're really talking about underneath it all. Yeah. All right. So next topic that I want to know, that was the positive side, and I'm sure that superhero Mr. Positivity was all about that. Now let's see your dark side, okay? I want to hear a criticism of, it could be the entire event, or it could be a panel, or it could be a panel that you wish you could see that you're not getting. And I know that Paul has talked a little bit about splitting it up and that structure. I'm hoping that you can find something else to talk about, or if not, you could hone in on that a little bit more. So Paul,
I got one thing I can, and I touched on that earlier too, but it's, aside from the Snyder Cut, I think I was most excited about the surprises, as Christian pointed out. With some of these cons, the most exciting thing is what you don't know is coming. And that to be announced panel had all the possibilities. It had released the Ayer cut. It had Ben Affleck's potential series or film on HBO Max. It had whatever it is that your heart wanted. I mean, it feels like the world of possibility is open now. And that to be announced panel held that glimmer of hope. and they took that one away. So that kind of squashed that little glimmer of hope. Now, the announcement that Affleck's going to be back in the Flash movie, even if it's just for a small role, opens that door, and it's still a pretty big announcement. So it cushions that blow. But I would have loved to have held out hope that maybe they were going to announce the Ayer cut, or just something totally unexpected, right? Something out of left field. I mean, I'm not super excited about Ava DuVernay's New Gods, but I mean, that was a possibility. Or maybe some movie we hadn't considered. Maybe they were going to announce something to do with Cyborg on HBO Max or in theatrically. Like, whatever. It was that uncertainty that excited me. So taking away that surprise movie panel, and I think, as I say, I think the other one, the surprise DC Comics panel, I think that's comics related. I don't think that's movie related. I would have liked a surprise movie related panel, and I was excited about that one, and I was disappointed to see it taken away. So that's my big disappointment, aside from the fact that I thought I had a nice structure set up, which involved focusing on Hall of Heroes when I wanted to and checking out the other stuff in between. But hey, not the end of the world.
All right, Christian, what about you? Any issues you'd like to raise?
I'm similar to Paul in this one. I think the split with the Hall of Heroes, and then you have the other verses kind of getting split off to, what is it, September 12th is getting split off to. Again, I wasn't going to be glued to my computer all day anyway, just because I have other stuff to do. But I'm still going to be catching, when you have the, what's it called? I'm sorry, the encores, and I'm going to be watching some on Sunday. So I'm going to catch it, but being able to explore the rest of this interesting virtual multiverse that they were creating. The kids verse probably wasn't for me, but I do have nieces and nephews, and I maybe I could have gotten an idea for a gift or something like that, whatever it might be. So I think the inability to be able to really truly explore that and get the Comic-Con experience emulated into just a DC Comics experience, online, virtual, in this strange time of COVID, is a missed opportunity, I think, to me. It is. Yes, you are getting people to focus on the meat, which is some big shit that's coming out in Hall of Heroes. But I think it is a missed opportunity there to really get people to get all excited about that, and then have them branch off into the other areas of DC, which they could still get excited about. So I do think that's a downer. And I agree with Paul. I think for me, the surprise panel is most likely going to be comics related, and I am personally going to be happy about that. But there are a ton of people out there that probably don't give two flying craps. So having a surprise movie panel might have been really cool to talk about whatever. I don't care what it might have been. So could be a missed opportunity in there. There's definitely nothing in here that I'm outright against. Even if I don't watch it, it just means I'm not personally interested in it. So I'm not against it. There's panels, Comic-Con I don't care about. So yeah, for me though, I think that's more a growing pains issue as they start to feel this out and realize what maybe they need to do for next year. I think that's, they're just logistically figuring this stuff out. So those would be my two negative takeaways from it. Nothing that kills the whole event for me, but just, makes it's something that they probably could have improved. Yeah.
Well, for me, in keeping with the spirit of the Exiles, I am opposed
cancel you.
to. Yeah. Can't cancel me. Already been canceled. Already been exiled. I am very opposed to the Suicide Squad. I'm mildly opposed to Wonder Woman, and for two reasons, which have to do with sort of it's not even a moral conflict. It shouldn't be, because Suicide Squad represents to me exactly what happened with Zack Snyder's Justice League in terms of bringing on a Marvel director and not giving the DC director who was there the chance to make the film that he wanted. It's almost beat for beat the same terrible story. But obviously people are going to be excited about it because that's why they brought him in there, because he's got fans from Marvel. So they're going to overlook whatever sort of shady stuff is going on. I mean, I just don't agree with it. It doesn't agree with my soul on so many levels artistically, because it's like, it's a copy and paste job. Like, it's some of the most blatant pandering that you could ever do to bring the person who made Guardians of the Galaxy, which people had already quote unquote said was like Marvel's, like Suicide Squad, or Suicide Squad was DC's Guardians of the Galaxy, and then take that exact director and then put him in that, just like they took the exact director of Avengers and put him in Justice League. It's just, it just really doesn't agree with me on so many levels. So I'm not. I'll be curious maybe to see what the trailer looks like, what the footage looks like, but I'm not throwing my weight behind that in any way. I'm not judging anyone who does. You do you, but for me, that's something that I'm going to try to avoid. I'm going to watch the trailer and you'll hear my thoughts. One thing about me is that I'm never biased. If it's good, I'll say it's good. If it's not, I'll say it's not. That's just the way I am. And then Wonder Woman, Jeff Johns is closely involved in that, and we're going to talk a bit more about Jeff Johns, but we all know that he is not someone that I advocate for in any way. And then also Hector Navarro's involvement in whatever panel he's involved in. Hector Navarro is someone, I've blocked him on social media. He's a person who works for DC and has been bullying, harassing, slandering DC fans, Zack Snyder, DC products, and the argument that everyone is entitled to their opinion does not apply here, because when you work for a company, it is unethical to be critical of the products of that company, except if it has to do with something like, some morality issue, like workplace abuse or unsafe working conditions, but just in terms of bashing the product of a company that you work for. I've worked for companies. I've had to, sit in on meetings where people were reprimanded for that kind of behavior. And that's unacceptable, because for people who are fans of these products, they expect, no, I won't say they expect, but getting, hate and dissenting voices and even abuse from commentators from outside that company is one thing. But to get it from people within that company, there's a different weight to it. It carries a different weight. There's a different context to it. And I personally feel that Hector Navarro should not, as long as he has those opinions and he hasn't been reprimanded for those actions, he should not be working for DC. He is free to spew whatever commentary he has on any other platform. As a matter of fact, he's free to come on this platform, and I would happily debate him on the DC stuff he hates. But as an employee of DC, he has no. It's ethically wrong. It's bad for the brand. It's bad for people trying to enjoy something. It kills excitement. It puts a damper on people's enjoyment and good feelings about something when they come to the place where they're supposed to celebrate it, and they're also getting hate. So I'm very, 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 very much against those things. Yeah, and that's just the truth. All right. So we know that DC is about the big three, the holy trinity, the triumvirate of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So the hottest panels are going to be Snyder Cut, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So I want to hear more detailed thoughts from you guys about these panels. Let's start with Wonder Woman, and let's start with Paul, because he's got the most positive things to say.
I think I've been pretty positive tonight, but overall, I mean, relative to the norm. Wonder Woman 84. This is one that I'm really torn on whether or not I'm going to support this one. I think what it's going to come down to is if my daughter expresses an interest in it, and so far she has, we'll check it out because that's her interest. I'm not loving what I'm seeing from it on a personal level, but as a parent, I take my daughter to see other movies that aren't particularly my taste, and I think this movie is made more for her than it is for me. I saw a little teaser clip today, and I don't know how much it circulated, but that parachute pants joke, I don't know if you guys saw it,
I saw it.
where he he comes out in the parachute pants and he's like, "Oh, does everyone parachute now?" And I was like, "Oh God, this is the kind of stuff we've been trying to get away from, and here they are doubling down on it." And but you know what? People will find that funny, I guess. It's not for me, but yeah. So I'm lukewarm on this, but I know my daughter is at least moderately excited about it. So I will watch this trailer both for my own curiosity and because I think she'll be excited about it, and whether say her excitement level and her interest level will dictate whether or not this one actually gets my money. So that's my thoughts on Wonder Woman. You want me to go ahead to Flash, or do you guys want to talk about Wonder Woman first?
Let's hear Christian. Christian, what do you think about Wonder Woman?
I think I'm the opposite. I mean, I am excited about Wonder Woman 84, and I've loved Gal's take on it. I know it's obviously, it's a mixture of Patty and Zach and everybody. I get all that. I know it's not just her, but I am looking forward to it. The only downside to Wonder Woman 84 is I don't like that they keep throwing it in my face that it's 80s. Like, by the way, did you guys know it's in the 80s? I don't know if you knew that, because it's in the 80s, just in case. And it's 1984, in case you guys are wondering. It's 1984. So there's a little bit too much of that going on. However, I do know, if I'm not mistaken, the panel itself will have Gal, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, and they're going to make it a little more fan focused, which I think is really good for the interactivity of it. So yeah, I'm not as down. I did see the clip and it made me smile, made me laugh. I have nothing. I didn't think it was that offensive to my sensibilities, that particular joke.
You know what, Christian? In isolation, it's not that offensive. But there was another one about the garbage pail in the last clip, and it just seems like they're putting an emphasis on the corny 80s humor, like the fish out of water in the 80s, and that's going to get old fast, for me at least. But you know what? For some, they'll love it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that made me smile too. Again, it wasn't nearly as offensive as I've seen some. Like, I'm a big fan of the two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, except Guardians of the Galaxy 2 decided to go off the wall in terms of comedy. And I was like, okay, guys, you're going a step too far. And I'm an MCU fan, and you're going a step too far. So there is a line that I think could be crossed in this movie, and it could get crossed very quickly. But from what I've seen so far, I don't think it's necessarily going to do it, but what the hell do I know until I see it? So far, I'm excited about it. I like the way it looks. I have a wife and a sister that are really pumped to see this movie. So maybe in a sense, I'm even more excited because I get to experience it with them. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Mm-hmm. All I know is that, yes, this is a panel I am looking forward to, and it is also a movie that I'm looking forward to. So I'm still positive on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I'm not going to be as positive as you guys. I'm not, like, I mean, for so many reasons. Obviously, there's the Jeff Johns involvement still bothers me to no end. It's like anything. It's like Bryan Singer being involved in something, or
I can't blame you guys for that. I can't.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, obviously he's not the sole creator, and there are a lot of other people in it and stuff like that. But it's one of those things that's like a splinter in your mind, just always at the back of your mind, like, why is he, it's weird. And then in terms of the direction, I'm curious to see, not excited, but curious to see where it goes, because just from following these things very closely, I know, and let's put it that way, that what the first Wonder Woman was mainly Zack Snyder's baby in terms of producer, story, visual style, aesthetic. I love the casting choices. A lot of that movie, that has a lot of his vision in it, even as closely tied to the former DCEU, like the Snyderverse, as it was. The only parts that didn't have his vision in it, that had Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns, was the third act, which inevitably is the worst part of the movie. Now, this movie is more Patty Jenkins. And you can see it with, how glossy and candy-coated Wonder Woman's armor is. The fact that Wonder Woman doesn't have a sword because, quote-unquote, Patty Jenkins says it's too aggressive, okay? So, stuff like that turns me off from it. Not completely, but I enjoyed the first and second acts of the first Wonder Woman film so much that anything that's a departure from that, to me, doesn't have me as excited. I'm not saying things can't, but you'll have to convince me that the departure is necessary and the departure is good. I think that's only fair. And then throw in the fact that the third act, which is more Jeff Johns and which is more Wonder Woman, was absolutely horrible. And then these are the creative forces behind the entirety of this. They have a lot of convincing of me to do. And then obviously with Paul, with what Paul's alluded to, with the jokes and the humor, and then Chris Pine coming back is another sort of emotional crutch that I don't like in terms of it just being an emotional crutch and being lazy storytelling and a cop out. Although to be sincere, in the comics he comes back. He's come back several times, died and come back. Yeah, but this is not a comic. This is a movie, and I expect more from big budget movies done at this high level of craft. So with all those said, that's where I stand on Wonder Woman. I remain skeptical, and the jury is out in my mind. I will watch the trailer, definitely, but I have serious concerns. I really do. So next of the triumvirate that we will speak about is Batman, everybody's favorite except me. Guys, Matt Reeves Batman with Robert Pattinson. There was some brand new visuals, the new logo that we got today. Jim Lee also did some key art of the cape, the cowl, and the collar. So Paul, what do you think about the upcoming panel? What do you think about the art and the new bat symbol that we got today?
I didn't look super closely at it, but it didn't offend me. I thought it was okay. It didn't blow me away either, the art. As I said before, I'm interested in the Batman. Batman's my favorite character. He has been since I was a kid, where I kind of waffled between Spider-Man and Batman, and maybe lean Spider-Man during Todd McFarlane's run, but Batman's kind of always been my favorite, right?
Man.
So Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man was great.
Don't encourage me.
This is what we're asking for. It's dark. It's serious. It might have an R rating. They're getting into the psychology of the character. You see Pattinson's enthusiasm for being able to push boundaries and go places with an R rating potentially that you couldn't go elsewhere. Now, that hasn't been confirmed that they're doing it, but you hope that that's where they're going. And so this is going to be our first chance to get a real solid look at it, right? We've had teases of, like you say, the cowl and the neck, which looks a little questionable, the chest plate and the symbol, which we're still not exactly sure what that is, as far as I know. Batmobile is definitely an interesting take, but I'm open to it. So it's a combination of curiosity and excitement for this one, but I'm not having the negative feelings that a lot of people are to this, and I'm interested in maybe a more psychological Batman than the physically imposing one. And that's not to say I prefer this take. The Batfleck take was perfect for my tastes. Old, broken, angry Batman is off the rails. Batman is perfect. That's exactly what I like. I don't even want to see Batman.
Are you trying to tell us something about how you see yourself in?
Are you old, angry, and off the rails? Is that what you?
Old and breaking down. That's for sure. Try and keep the rest under control, but I found rating the wine rack a little too much. Affleck to be that's my kind of relatable character, So that's my taste in characters. The Frank Miller Dark Knight, that kind of Batman is always, even before I was old and broken. That was interesting to me, and now that I can really relate to it, that's still my taste, but I'm also interested in a different take, especially if it's going to lean into the darkness and the psychology of the character and not this campy comedic crap. And don't get me wrong, I like my Lego Batman, but I like my Lego Batman as Lego Batman. Yeah. I don't want that invading my live action like they tried with Josstice League with the "I don't not like you" crap, right? Which was a pure Lego Batman type. Yeah. I mean, could you not see Lego Batman saying that to the Joker? But you think he might have actually said it to him.
Something's definitely bleeding.
Yeah, exactly. That same kind of stuff, right? So this is okay to me. I mean, the only resentment I would have is that we maybe got this instead of our Batfleck solo. But now I'm not so sure we're not going to get our Batfleck solo. So that makes me feel better about this too. So I'm open. The more Batman, the better. The more takes, the better. As long as it's not campy, corny crap, right? And this doesn't look like it's campy or corny. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah. Christian, what do you think of the upcoming Batman panel?
Like Paul, Batman is hands down one of my favorite characters. He and Wolverine are my two favorite comic book characters, and I adore them and all the different takes that they've had throughout their history. And I don't know, it's their journeys, it's everything. So, and if Batman is comic and he's campy, let me know he's going to be comic and campy, and I'm going to be okay with that. It's when they do what Paul said that I typically will have a problem with it. This and I was surprised because Bale is my goat. He's my goat in the character, but man, Ben Affleck surprised me and rapidly became my second favorite. I am very happy with his take on the character. So seeing a new take so quickly is jarring. But I'm definitely willing to see it, but it's definitely jarring to me. As for the design itself, guys, I kind of like the fact that this has a rough around the edges look to it. And this is a rough around the edges Batman that we're supposed to be getting. This is not a Batman that has been polished at the top of his game and then is starting to break down a little bit and has brutally become violent, lost his faith in humanity, all that. He's at the beginning of all of this, different than Bale's apparently. So a little rough around the edges. I like what Jim Lee was going for. He made the collar look cool because so far I have not seen something that made the collar look cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Definitely notable.
He made it look good. I have yet to see something make that collar look good, so I'm interested in seeing if that translates well from the page to the screen. As for the panel itself, guys, Matt Reeves is getting joined by Aisha Tyler, and she's my girl. So she's like the biggest fangirl on the planet. I love her a lot, and apparently they're bringing on a surprise guest or two, they said. So this could be a really cool panel. I think whether you want to be a hater, whether you want to be a lover, or whether you're just curious, you probably got to watch this panel just to see what's going on with Batman. We're supposed to get more footage, like Paul said. You got to go for it. But I like the little design there. It's very, very comic-y, and it seems like it's rough, which and younger Batman is probably supposed to be rough. So let's see.
Yeah. Christian, to your point there about, sorry, Lupe, I just want to jump in and say one thing. To your point about it being jarring, not being ready for new Batman, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I made that mistake with Batfleck.
Yeah.
Because I like Bale. I like the Dark Knight trilogy. I thought, why are we getting another Batman movie? I remember thinking, why another Batman movie and why Ben Affleck when he was just Daredevil? And Daredevil is one of those movies on my at least the theatrical cut. I've not seen the extended, which I hear is better, but that was up there on my list of movies I've been closest to walking out of. And so I just said I was close to it, and it didn't hit me until I actually watched the Ultimate Edition how awesome Batfleck was, and I stopped to question why I was so close-minded to it. So I will not make that mistake again. So I'd advocate for anyone. I'd suggest, I guess, to anyone else that is in that mindset. Be open. You can still like Batfleck, and there's still a decent chance we're going to get more Batfleck.
Yeah,
so don't be closed-minded to something different if we can have both.
Yeah.
You guys, you've made really, really amazing cases for the Batman. I think I remain where I have been. And I don't want people to misconstrue my words. I'm excited for this, actually. I'm just disappointed that visually, I don't think that it's going to be as good as it can be. And I believe that we don't have to choose. It doesn't have to be, you either get story, depth, grounded, grittiness, the psychological investigation of the character, or you get great visuals and great aesthetic and this great sort of comic book language. You can have the best of both worlds together, as we saw with Batfleck. Batfleck was a Batman that was exploring the dark depths of the character, the trauma that the character has experienced, pushing him to his moral limits, really testing the character in every way possible. So you can have both. It's just Matt Reeves is not a director that ever looked at and said, he's good at action or he's good at. It's just even his Apes movies, the action isn't particularly good. The cinematography isn't even particularly great, and I love those movies. Okay.
You know what? I'll say something too that might get me canceled as well. Like the Dark Knight trilogy is fantastic, and you guys know how I feel about Nolan,
Hmm.
but the action in Batman Begins is so claustrophobic.
Yeah, and the
It's a
action in The Dark Knight Rises is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so I agree with you. Sometimes these guys come out of left field. Still great movies, don't get me wrong, but like
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, Nolan.
masterpiece. The Dark Knight, definitely. So yeah, it is possible that we don't get something that has like the warehouse fight scene and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Batmobile, car chase, where he's mowing people down and Alfred's probably like, what is wrong with this guy? um, but we're still going to get a fantastic movie because in terms of story, in terms of character, in terms of like mystery, Matt Reeves is going to knock it out the park. Like, do not fool yourself. This is going to be one of the best Batman stories we've ever had on film. Bet that, like, for real. I'm just, just that little disappointment that, I wish we could have, I wish like the costume could have been better. I wish the Batmobile was not a Vin Diesel Fast and Furious ride. And for as far as the art that Jim Lee made, I think we got to keep it real. He made that Batman look better than what Pattinson has looked like. That's just the facts. Pattinson does not look like that in the Cape Cowling collar. He doesn't look that good. That's just the facts. But yeah, I am excited to see. I wish, I hope we get like a teaser. They've been shooting for a while, and maybe Matt Reeves doesn't have as much experience as someone like Zack Snyder. But one thing that Zack Snyder has said is that he schedules his shooting, and it's not just Zack Snyder that does this, but people who make like these kind of fan centric blockbusters where there's so much thirst for content and trailers and teasers, and Zach is really good at hyping stuff, so they shoot stuff that they're going to use for a trailer immediately. They schedule it very quickly. They start the VFX like even before post-production, before principal photography. They start on some VFX assets and stuff like that. That's why we're able to get the first teaser for Justice League. Just was it weeks after principal, maybe like 6 weeks after principal photography, we got the first teaser for Justice League. So I do hope he surprises us with a teaser, because if he does, my goodness, my God, the amount of goodies we're gonna have. Oh, it's gonna be glorious. So yeah, I am excited for it. Overall, very excited, very hopeful. And that's where I stand on it. So let's end the fandom conversation with the Snyder Cut. Release the Snyder Cut. Guys, tell me your mood going into this, your expectations, your hopes, your dreams, your passions. Just open your heart to me, okay? This is a safe space around the campfire in the wastelands. All right, Paul, let's hear what you got to say.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think we all want to see this trailer, right? And we got a little taste today with that 24-second clip, which sounded like it had the Junkie XL score in it. So I want more of that. I want the full 2.5, 3 minutes of it. It was just nice to see the proper color grading and the image composition today. And you want more. You want more of that taste of what we're going to get. I'd love to see that Steppenwolf and Desaad conversation about the no lanterns, no Kryptonians. I think a lot of people, that's on their wish list. That was the line that got me most hyped up from the trailers for the theatrical cut, right? And then we never got it in the movie. So I want to see that done. I want to see that done the way it was meant to be done. And if I have to wait, fine, I'll wait. But the trailer is number one. That's what I'm most interested in hearing about, or seeing, I should say. And then I want the details. I want to know exactly how we're going to consume this. Is it going to be a 4-hour movie? Is it going to be episodes? Is it going to be 2 parts? Is it, what's the format going to be? Is it really 1.33 even on widescreen television? Or is it the 1.66 that he mentioned a while ago and hasn't mentioned recently? Because I think today he it sounded like he confirmed 1.33 in his Vero comments, but I know in the past he clearly said 1.66. Me personally, I think I'd prefer the 1.66 on my home viewing experience. If he's actually going to get this thing in an IMAX theater, then great, go for the 1.33, 1.43, whatever. The 1.43 he was mentioning at SnyderCon. But for me, I like the widescreen format. So yes, you get more at the top and bottom on a 1.33, but you're also getting 25% of your screen filled with black bars, which actually is, the same as roughly the same amount of black as a 2.35 by 1. So it's actually just different, not necessarily less image than you'd get in a 2.35 by 1. But I'm conditioned to like widescreen, and subconsciously, I think when I see square, I think SD. Even though this is not SD, this is still going to be high definition. So I want image size or image ratio, I guess, confirmed. I want episode format confirmed. I don't really care what it's called. It seems like today it might be called the Snyder Cut. Before, he'd clearly said that the name they wanted was Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm okay with either. I don't really care. It'd be nice to know, I guess, once and for all what it is, but that's really low on my priority list. I really want to see the trailer, know the format in terms of number of episodes and the image ratio, and if maybe we get choices. Maybe we're going to get the option of viewing it in 1.33 or 1.66. Maybe we're going to get an option to see it in theater at some point, in addition to streaming on HBO Max. Those are the kind of questions I hope we get as many answers around that as we can. And that's, and as I said, this is, for me, is far and away the headliner experience for this DC fandom for me. This is what's bringing me in and creating the majority of my hype.
So Paul, there's a Snyder Cut. There's a version of Justice League that wasn't. I'm just kidding, bro. I'm just kidding.
At least 20 minutes of extra footage. But he might be using some of Whedon's, so we'll see.
Ooh, boo. No, okay. Look, am I as psyched as you and Lupe? Okay, maybe not. But am I still psyched? Yeah, to a certain extent. And I agree with you, by the way. I think the biggest thing with this panel is footage. I want to see the 2.5 minute, 3 minute trailer. Give me footage. That's what I want to see, because that's what this is all about right now at this point. We've been told, for people that are not in the community like you guys are, that this will be the end all be all. This is fantastic. This is amazing. This is the greatest comic book movie ever made. Well, let me see some of the footage then. I want to see that. We did see that little teaser today, which is fine. The teaser today was great. You guys are going to kill me. I prefer a color grading that's actually somewhere in between what Zach usually does and I don't know what the hell you call the color grading that was in Justice League, because that was just ultra bright. Something more along the lines of like Winter Soldier, Logan. So I kind of like something that's kind of a little bit more in between that, but it definitely looked better than what we had. So yeah, I want to see the footage. And the other thing would be too, is it possible for Zach to go into a little bit more detail about what we're going to see? Is it going to be just one movie? Is it going to be episodic? Can he talk a little bit about some of the stuff that was really changed in this movie, a la Cyborg and Superman? Those are the two biggest. I'm wondering if he's going to be able to go into that in this panel. It'd be really cool because we're going to get this trailer, so it looks like Cyborg's a big part of it. Can we talk a little bit more about Cyborg? And I'm really interested, because you guys know how I feel about his version of Superman. I loved Man of Steel, and I really disliked what they did in Justice League with Superman. And that is the one thing that I really think that Snyder can fix. So I really want to see a little bit more about Superman. So I'm wondering if they could go into that in the panel, but it's all about the footage, guys. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm way too excited. Like, everything else revolves around this Snyder Cut panel. I love hearing Zach talk about DC characters, talk about filmmaking, his creative process. Like, he's a very inspirational artist, for what he stands for as an artist. I always say he's someone who reminds us that it's okay to be you, however quirky you are, however different you are, it's okay to be you and uniquely you, and don't change who you are to please anyone else. The most powerful thing you have in this world is your unique signature, or else you're nothing. You're just nothing, So in that spirit, I'm happy to see the film however he wants to make it. Not, am I gonna love it if the aspect ratio is a weird triangle tilted to the side? No, but I'm going to allow him to do what he wants to do. The color grading, it looks different from Man of Steel. It looks different from BVS as well. It strikes me more as within the color palette of Sucker Punch. And in Sucker Punch, there are some scenes that are like super vibrant, super colorful. Then, especially the more quote unquote mundane scenes where you don't have as much, crazy stuff going on. It's very desaturated, very contrasted. The blacks are intensely black. And I like it. What can I say? I'm someone who just has a taste and a palate for the dark and gritty. DC Comics, after all, does stand for dark and gritty comics. It's not Detective Comics. It's dark and gritty comics. So to be sincere, like when I saw the color grading, it made me hungry and thirsty for some food and some wine. It just like it's exciting to me because this panel it's more than a movie, right? It's about a movement, and it's about everything that movement stood for and stands for is what this film represents: artistic integrity, standing for what is right, standing 10 toes down for what you believe in, despite people saying you're wrong, despite people saying you should be some other way, despite people saying you should be like the popular thing, despite people saying that you're crazy, despite people saying that what you like or what you love or what you stand for is wrong. Having just ultimate faith, ultimate belief in who you are. And that's what we're seeing. The Snyder Cut is going to be a celebration. That's what it is. Like, just even forget the film itself. It's going to be a celebration. And I'm just so delighted to see the return of Zack Snyder to fan events, and it's going to be glorious. I'm also very excited that Aisha Tyler seems like she's going to be hosting the big DC panels. She's fantastic at it, super talented. She's got the energy, got a voice for it. You see, she's easy on the eyes as well, I must say.
Yes, sir.
And there's a full circle, karmic justice ring to it, because she was a frequent host at Zack Snyder's panels at Comic-Con, and where he did a bunch of like trailer reveals, and I always remember her voice, talking to Zack, and she's been a huge supporter of Zack's work. When BVS came out and there was so much hate for it, she was one of the few verified people on Twitter and people who really stuck her neck out there and said, this movie is a masterpiece. I don't care what you haters say. You can go suck it. Explaining like all the stuff that people were trying to say was wrong with the film, like breaking down what it means as a statement of American power and the immigrant experience and persecution of illegal immigrants and all that stuff. Like, so her coming around to welcome Zack Snyder back after witnessing the birth, the rise, the fall, and the resurrection. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And that's what this panel means to me. I know it's what it means to a lot of the Snyder Cut faithful. And I'm happy for all of us that we're gonna get to experience the glory. As Christian said, is it gonna be the greatest movie ever, the most beautiful thing ever? It doesn't have to be to everyone. Zack Snyder has said he's not trying to make something popular. He's making it for the fans. So people who don't normally like Zack Snyder's content or who normally aren't the biggest fans of his stuff, it doesn't matter if they like it or not. This is for the fans. And that's the beauty of it. That's any fan anywhere should just be in love with that concept, because it means that whatever you love, wherever it is in this world, someone can make that thing for you, despite what anyone else says, unabashedly, not caring about adulation and praise from people who probably never really liked it in the first place. So that's what this stands for, and the Snyder Cut, it's everything. And I can't wait. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. I hope and hope that my heart doesn't just like burst from being too fast. But I'm really excited. I know I have hopes in terms of reveals. Maybe we get some Green Lantern stuff. That will be super exciting. Obviously, as Paul has alluded to, we'd like to know more on the format it's going to take in terms of storytelling. Is it going to be broken up? Going to be one saga? Are we getting IMAX? All that kind of good stuff. Yeah, just more details. So yeah, the Snyder Cut at HBO Max, the preview, the Fandome. So yeah, that's our Fandome primer. I hope you guys gained a little bit of insight from that. And with that, we will move on to our next topic, which is also DC related. Look at that segue. We got Ben Affleck, aka Batfleck, aka the GOAT. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. In an exclusive report from Vanity Fair, Ben Affleck will return as Batfleck alongside Michael Keaton in Andy Muschietti's The Flash movie, which stars Ezra Miller, of course. And I have some really cool quotes from producer Barbara Muschietti. She says his Batman has a dichotomy that is very strong, which is his masculinity because of the way he looks and the imposing figure that he has and his jawline. But he's also very vulnerable. He knows how to deliver from the inside out that vulnerability. He just needs a story that allows him to bring that contrast and that balance. In talking about his struggles with substance abuse and his tumultuous times, she said, "We are all human and go through great times in our lives and terrible times in our lives. Right now, he's in a place where he can certainly enjoy being Batman. Plus, he doesn't have to carry the entire movie. It's a pivotal role, but at the same time, it's a fun part. He's the baseline. He's part of the unaltered states before we jump into Barry's adventure," the director said. That's from Andy Muschietti. There's a familiarity there. So, guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Go off. Paul, let's start with you. What did you think of this news? Did you ever think that Batfleck was going to come back? And what do you think it means for the Flash movie?
Yeah, I thought there was an outside chance he was coming back. I thought there was even an outside chance that he might appear in this one. But this was a surprise announcement today, obviously. I mean, we talked in the past, like Never Say Never, about him coming back. I think it might have even been our last episode. We kind of said that in response to Mark Hughes saying that, the Batfleck wasn't coming back. He'd heard nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And actually he changed his story today. He said that now not only did this come up recently, but now he's hearing that there's several people within HBO that are interested in a potential Affleck series or solo film for HBO Max. So
just not to cut you off, I apologize, but when we're having this conversation, what did I say? I said Mark Hughes was wrong about the Snyder Cut, so I don't want to hear what he has to say about this. And lo and behold, wrong again. No offense to him. This is not meant to be, I have no beef for him, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, and he, to his credit, he came right out and admitted it, and he did that when he was wrong about the Snyder Cut too, and he was on the forefront of people admitting when they were wrong about that. So you have to respect that. And even when he said it in the last time, he said that he had not heard, not that he wasn't coming out saying it's deaded, it'll never happen. He just said that from his sources he'd heard nothing of it. And as I say, to his credit, he came out and he's now saying that he is hearing about it, and which take that for what it's worth, but. This is exciting news, right? With The Flash, my interest was high when I thought we were getting Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It dropped when I thought we were getting a nostalgia pander with Michael Keaton. And then you started hearing, well, you might still get Jeffrey Dean Morgan because maybe Flash is going to start ripping through multiple verses, right? Mm-hmm. And then you start thinking, well, if he's going to rip through multiple verses, wouldn't it make sense to have Batfleck in one of those verses, like say the launching verse, the home verse that he starts out in. Now we don't know where he's going to end up. Is he going to end up back in the Batfleck verse? Is he going to end up in the Matt Reeves verse? I don't get the sense he's going to end up in the Matt Reeves verse, but who knows? I'm not sure if he's going to end up in the Batfleck verse. I have my doubts, but hey, it makes sense, and it's great to have Ben Affleck back. And you got to believe that maybe this opens the door for more Batfleck, and then that's sort of to the point that Mark Hughes is now saying that yes, he is hearing chatter, and we've heard other people. I think most notably the cultured nerd has been known to be pushing this Affleck coming back narrative since very shortly after the Snyder Cut announcement, the official Snyder Cut announcement. And to their credit, they were right. Whether or not that was based on a true source or whether or not they connected the dots, I have no idea. I mean, I don't want to disparage their credibility in any way. I know there's been arguments about their credibility or not, and I honestly have no idea. So, good for them. They got it right. I'm glad they're right. I mean, they were sort of accused of telling fans what they wanted to hear, and thankfully fans are getting what they wanted, right? So this is what I wanted. I'm way more interested in the Flash movie now than I ever was, but not only for that movie, but for the potential future of seeing Affleck again. And I think the quote that really made me feel good was from Muschietti's sister that confirmed our suspicions that it was the drama, not the role, that drove him out. And now that he's got his personal problems under control, it's not the role at all that he's shying away from. And in fact, he was surprisingly open to it. So that looks great for the future. Now our job as fans is to go to support the content he's in. So obviously we have to make Snyder Cut a huge hit. I think it would help to show up for the Flash, although there are still warning signs with the Flash when they start talking about going for a Back to the Future tone. And you've got Christina Hodson writing, who I did not like the humor in Birds of Prey at all. I thought it was just too on the nose, try hard humor. And then going back to Bumblebee, John Cena's character was so ridiculously corny that it almost worked. Like, it was so outrageously bad that I actually kind of liked it. But I don't want to see that in my Flashpoint movie, right? So I'm still on the fence about the movie, but certainly more interested today. And now I'm kind of optimistic that we might see Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this as well, right? If you're gonna, Zach set that up for a reason. You're gonna bring Batfleck back as your base universe, so you're starting out in the Snyderverse. Or at least what's become of the Snyderverse in the theatrical sense. You're gonna go to other verses with Michael Keaton and his old '89 Batman. Why not take a pass through Thomas Wayne verse as a not only take advantage of that setup from BVS and to keep Snyder fans happy, but also as a nod to the comic which spawned this movie. So I'm much more interested now than I was 24 hours ago, and I'm looking forward to the DC Fandome panel much more than I was 24 hours ago. And I probably was not leaning towards seeing this one in theaters based on what I knew 24 hours ago, and now I definitely am leaning towards seeing this in theaters. So I think this is a huge win, not only for this film, but also for the fandom and for the potential of getting more Batfleck. And wouldn't it be great if we got the Batfleck, Joe Manganiello Deathstroke, and Jared Leto Joker crossover film or series that fans have been asking for, right? So it's great news. It's hope and optimism done right for me. So what did you guys think?
Christian, tell us what you thought.
Flashpoint. That's Flashpoint. It's what we've been saying for a bunch of episodes now. That definitely, I don't think. What the hell do I know? I don't think Affleck's Batman is going to have a juicy major role in the movie, because if they are going that direction, it is going to be the bouncing between different multiverses, different universes and everything. So parallel dimensions, all that fun stuff that comes with it. So I don't know if he has a juicy, meaty role, but what I like about it is what we've been talking about, that my major complaint against WB has been since the beginning. Take shit, throw it against the wall, see if it works, go to social media, see what people say about it, blah, 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 go right down the list and not have a friggin' clue what to do with your premier properties. And here we go. Now, this now tells me that either there was a plan behind the scenes all along and I'm a complete idiot and I was reading it the wrong way, or they have course corrected in the proper way, in a way in which they can, you don't have to do something where it's like, oh, well, we made the Snyderverse, but we're going to tell people that it's not the real universe. We made the DCU, but we're going to tell people that's not the real universe. They see that. No. They all exist. They're all canon. They're all real. Everything that you want, everything that you love, no matter what it is, there's a place for it right here for you. And it's here. And we're going to continue these stories. Oh, you like light? You like whatever you want? You like watching cosplay? Go watch CW. You like whatever's going on in DCU? You got it there. You like the Snyderverse? Guess what? We're going to continue that too, because that still exists. It doesn't stop. And I think that's the big takeaway from this is the acknowledgement. They are not turning aside. They are not throwing it away. It is completely different than what happened with Justice League, where they were actively trying to crush something. Now, no. We're embracing it. We're embracing everything. We're admitting we're embracing everything, but we're embracing this as well. So this has definitely got to be, I think, good news, especially from a comic perspective. You get these great different Earths and all these different, it's just, there's so many paths to the storytelling they could go. So many paths. For this movie, I don't know. I don't know if he's got a big role, but hey, man, this opens the doors to some other shit, doesn't it? I mean, come on. It totally does. So,
yeah. For me, I mean, this, you talking about the multiverse and this film, opening that up and focusing on that. Just another reminder that DC Fandome panel we're talking about, multiverse, it's one that people really should check out. Yeah, really check it out. I think it's gonna hopefully it should, add some clarity to the situation. It should, all those positive things you said about the possibilities with the multiverse.
Well, one thing I'd add to that, Lupe, it's a 30-minute panel, and it's right before this Flash panel, so it makes a lot of sense that they're going to tie together.
Absolutely. And in terms of Batfleck coming back, I don't want to say I never had a doubt, but I'm not surprised, honestly, for a lot of reasons. As I'm not sure how deep into this we went when we had discussions about this topic, but just if you've observed the way he's talked about the Snyder Cut, DCEU, DC projects in the past months, it's not just been blasé, laissez-faire, like, oh, that was something I did, that's cool. There's been passion in his eyes, genuine passion. As a matter of fact, in a video that he did about the Snyder Cut, it was almost like he was almost in tears, like full of happiness for Zack being able to complete his film. And if you know the history of he and Zack Snyder, he loves Zack Snyder. This is someone who roots for Zack Snyder. Like, one of the reasons why a lot of DC fans had a little bit of beef with Henry Cavill was because publicly he wasn't supporting Zack Snyder. Ben Affleck was one of the people that was publicly supporting Zack Snyder. Whenever he was asked about like Batman v Superman and that kind of stuff, he's talked severally about how he didn't want to do this Batman movie, but Zack Snyder convinced him to do it because of his passion for it, his enthusiasm, his take. That Dark Knight kind of brooding, more mature, broken, psychologically conflicted, deep dive into the character. So when it comes to Zack's take, Zack's world, Ben Affleck is very passionate about that. And we've talked about how the reason why he didn't want to do it that time was he was dealing with health issues, mental health issues, with alcoholism, depression, going through a tough time. But also, the environment within the company was toxic, which is going to be our next topic that we're going to go into with Jeff Johns and John Berg. And these people who are making life difficult for creatives. So you couple that together, it just wasn't a working environment that was good for him. And he saw what Zack Snyder was going through. And, we won't go too in-depth into, the trials and tribulations of Zack Snyder during that time. But these were all the swirling winds that made it impossible for him to be passionate and feel good about. I mean, you came in to be the Dark Knight Batman and they got you saying jokes like, I don't not like you. What? Like, and you're having Jeff Johns bullying people and, persecuting Zack Snyder and all this stuff going on. So now that the environment has been cleaned, okay, now that things are more positive and things are better, both within the organization and in his personal life. I've seen them pictures with Ana de Armas, and good Lord. All right. He's happy. All right. Well deserved. It only makes sense. It only makes sense that, that the possibility is high. We'll just leave this conversation on a very hopeful note. Hopefully he gets his own solo, Batman project. To me, we don't have closure on that. It's a great what would have been, and it's something that needs to happen. It really does. We've heard people talk about how crazy good the script was. We know that Joe Manganiello, the stuff I heard him say he was doing to prep for the role, this dude traveled to Japan to discover like forbidden katana blade techniques, the most lethal, like forbidden techniques that samurai are not supposed to use. He was studying this stuff because it was going to be, so let's just remain hopeful. Hopefully, that comes to fruition sometime soon. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm definitely going to watch The Flash now. And in the article, it wasn't mentioned. I mean, I forgot to mention this, but in the article was mentioned that there are going to be several Batman. So we may actually see Robert Pattinson's Batman. If we're able to see Christian Bale's Batman, that will be the bomb, y'all. But I think that Ben Affleck is actually going to have quite a substantial role. I definitely think that we're going to see Thomas Wayne and Michael Keaton's Batman's also. It's going to be dope. It sounds like a really good idea. It reminds me of Into the Spider-Verse and sort of, those meta things that they were doing with that property.
They were probably emboldened by the reception that Into the Spider-Verse got.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Paul, I know you have to dip out.
I do have to run at this point, guys, but it's been a great time chatting tonight, and I'm sure you'll carry on strong without me. So looking forward to hearing the rest of the episode once we got it out.
Absolutely, and our next episode, it's going to be post the first half of Fandome, so that's going to be another explosive episode of Ian, and I hope you're ready for that.
Looking forward to it.
All right, bro.
All right, have a good one, guys.
See you, Paul.
Okay, and then there were two, but it's all good. So let's move into our next topic, Christian, and let's just have a conversation about this Ray Fisher saga. This one, it's Ray Fisher versus the persons, not Ray Fisher versus the people, because I think Ray Fisher is the people in this instance. He posted some really serious tweets on Twitter today, and I quote, "After 5 weeks of interviews with various cast and crew, Warner Media has officially launched an independent third-party investigation to get to the heart of the toxic and abusive work environment created during Justice League reshoots. This is a massive step forward. I believe this investigation will show that Jeff Johns, Joss Whedon, John Berg, and others abused their power during the uncertainty of AT&T's merger with Time Warner. Thank you at Warner Media and AT&T for making strides to ensure a safer working place for all." And he ends it with the abbreviations A greater than E, which translates to accountability over entertainment. This is really serious stuff. This no joke. We can tackle this from personal vendettas and being personally slighted. We can also tackle this just from a place of morality and goodness and what's right. There are many ways to look at this. Christian, what would you like to say about this evolving case?
Let's start it from a legal perspective. Shit just got real. According to the Deadline article that came out, I believe it's just a little while before we recorded, the author said, "A source with knowledge at the studio tells us that no findings have been made yet, and to preserve the integrity of the investigation, the company will not conduct its investigation in the public space. There's no specific timeline to the investigation other than being thorough and efficient. Warner Media has not prejudged Joss Whedon or Justice League producers Jeff Johns or John Berg, and I hear that the inquiry, get ready for this, is not limited to them. Now, take that with whatever, right? So that's an author who said that's, and he has a source and blah blah blah, whatever. However, this is a lot larger than I think some people think. And the more I personally read about it, the more flabbergasted I am, and it's sickened is the other word too. When we first talked about it a few episodes ago, and you guys asked me about how I felt about Whedon, I told you, look, separating him, writer, filmmaker, person. I don't know him personally, but you hear about Charisma Carpenter and a couple of other people that worked with him. Sarah Michelle Gellar. You hear about people that worked with him, and it's like, there's some shit with Joss Whedon. There just is. And now the more that comes out, oh my God, it's more than just him being a tool bag. I mean, it seems like there was, I don't know if you want to call it a coordinated effort, but this stuff was allowed. And not only was it allowed, it was almost encouraged. It's okay to treat people like this. It's okay to have this working environment. It's all right to threaten people and to tell them that if you want to do ABC, I'll ruin your effing career. Really? So this has gone beyond hazing. This has gone beyond, getting a rookie actor to act a certain way. No. This is now bordering on abuse. And if what he's saying is true, it is abuse. It is abuse. So it's disgusting, Lupe. I don't know what else to say. And the word disappointing no longer holds any water. At first I was disappointed. Now I'm not disappointed anymore. Now I'm disgusted. And, it blackens and darkens the stuff that I like that Whedon has done. And it makes me personally feel skeevy for watching that stuff and enjoying it. And I feel bad for a guy like Ray Fisher, who by all means, he seems like a good guy and a good person who doesn't deserve that. And you know what? He didn't deserve it. Gellar didn't deserve it. Charisma Carpenter, none of them deserve it. Nobody deserves it. And it's just, I don't know what else to say, man. I'm just so saddened by it. And I'm sickened by it. And I'm happy, though, for two things. Number one, justice appears to be getting done. And number two, before I throw the football back to you, is it sounds like he's got other people. It's not just Ray Fisher. There's other people here. So, which, by the way, I think is key, considering that at the moment he's not a Ben Affleck in Hollywood yet, right? He's not one of those big players yet. So I think if those people support him, that says a lot. It says a lot. I don't know, man. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I echo your sentiments. It's not like I didn't know some of this stuff, and there's a lot of information. If you're able to parse through things, you can start to collate data and form an image. But this is official. This is really official. And one thing that people need to know about these kind of investigations is that they do preliminaries before. It's like an indictment, right? It's kind of like there has to be evidence, right? You don't just indict someone just because of nothing. There has to be hard evidence before you can, engage in, all right, an official investigation has to happen. That means that when they interviewed people, there was some stuff that they heard that was like, damn, we cannot ignore this.
They are finding if there's smoke, there's fire, and they are going after the fire.
Absolutely.
Whatever they heard is not just hearsay. No, absolutely.
Exactly. Because obviously, it's an independent third-party investigation.
Big key.
So you can tell when they do that, you know what that means? It means that they're trying to cover their asses. It means that they've seen something that they're like, whoa, washing our hands off this. Let's bring someone else, because at this point, and Ray Fisher, he did give us Easter eggs and nods. He said, remember, that some of the things that he said, where like he chooses his words wisely. He said that they're shit in their pants.
Yep.
So I believe, like, even the stuff that we know, as you said, I think it's even worse. And we have heard some terrible things. Like, there are rumors that he locked Gal Gadot in a room.
Yeah.
That to me doesn't even sound real. But if that happened, holy moly. even the stuff of Flash landing in the boobs and the objection to that in itself is unethical and abhorrent in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Joss Whedon, he has now shown a track record. So, just like in anything, you do something once, it's a mistake. You do something twice, you get a slap on the wrist. Third time, but when you show a track record, then it gets to the point where people are like, we have to put a stop to this, and we really have to like lay down the law. But there's something funny that I always think about that Manu said.
Mm-hmm.
when I think Joss Whedon's wife put out that letter letting people know, like, this dude is fugazi. He's not who y'all think he is.
Yeah, he pretends to be a
feminist.
feminist.
He's not a feminist. He is a pretty horrible person. Manu said something to the effect of, this dude has been, whatever word you want to use, trash, for the longest time. But why is it that it's when he's out of like Disney and now in like a DC property that, he's allowed to be touched?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want to, I'm not trying to raise a red flag or say there's a conspiracy. I just think it's quite interesting, in light of, not just in isolation, but in light of what we know about the way critics and media react to Disney creators, Disney material, the way they cover that part of the blockbuster entertainment sphere, and the way they're quite harsh on others. I just thought that's very interesting, and it's something serious to talk about, because basically it empowered and enabled his behavior.
Don't forget too, in addition to what you just said, Disney has had certain stories come out about creators that have worked with them in the past, and people that have been their employees. Their ability to cover something up is unmatched. Yep. Unmatched, because they have a ton of marketing sway, a ton of media sway, and again, it's what I said earlier in the pod. Yes, I think Comcast is evil, and I don't trust AT&T, but Disney's right up there. Disney's right up there. I can like some of their products and still admit that they are right up there, and they absolutely have that ability. Read up on Bryan Singer's X-Men, and Whedon was involved in that, and Holly Berry and a couple people have said, look, yeah, Bryan Singer was not the greatest person to work with, but they had issues with Whedon on set too.
Wow. So I had no idea about that.
Read up on, there's a lot about him. There's a lot. And stuff is coming out now because all that shit came out about Bryan Singer. So now, I mean, nothing came out as far as I know, so I would never say this, that, Whedon was abusing young boys or anything. No. As far as I know.
I know. You just mean in terms of on-set behavior and that kind of.
That movie was extremely uncomfortable for certain reasons, and Singer may not have been the only reason, basically. So, but again, now that was pre-Disney, I understand that, but even his issues and everything that he had a problem with Age of Ultron, which was also so disappointing with the Zack Snyder thing, because he got shit on with Age of Ultron. You figured he would understand how Snyder felt. Disney absolutely covered all that behind the scenes drama. That started coming out later on during the Ike Perlmutter fallout. So I probably talked too much, and I'm sorry.
But no, you didn't. You really shed light on a lot of things, and this reminds me of the way behavior like this gets encouraged, is perpetrated, and the way lives are negatively affected because of it. We all have to do a better job, as Ray Fisher says, accountability over entertainment. That's why the Jeff Johns thing is bothering me. It really is. I'm not saying it's an end all be all, or it is a splinter in my mind in terms of, why is Patty Jenkins still working with this person? Like, what is it? Like, accountability over entertainment. Like, this guy apart from the personal assault against Ray Fisher, the threat of livelihood. I mean, like, when you make that kind of threat, you're not just like, that's not just.
You are
I
talking
mean,
about crushing somebody. I mean, it's just
exactly. We can't. I mean, both you and I both know that we can't diminish any sort of bullying or harassment, because if it affects people, even their mental health, that's a serious thing. But what he did is even more blatant, even less subversive and less shadowy than that. You're talking about someone's livelihood,
exactly,
their hopes and dreams.
And this is a young actor,
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is like what he did, serious stuff. And basically, if you listen to the words of Ray Fisher, he intimates that the behavior of Joss Whedon, they couldn't find any respite. They couldn't find any shelter because Jeff Johns and John Berg shielded him, supported him, made sure that he had the autonomy to assault and harm the people who he was responsible for. He was responsible for their care. And
that enabling.
That's very disturbing.
It
makes him as guilty. I mean, apart from, and I'm making sure that I'm not discussing some of the things that people may think are personal between me and Jeff Johns in terms of what he did to a project that I love and what he did in terms of to people that I love. Just on a professional level, it's very disturbing. And he's involved, and this is another thing with things like Wonder Woman. You have a movie that's definitely going to be moralizing about goodness, about heroism, standing up for the right thing, about truth, justice, and then you're working with someone who's an abuser, an assaulter of people, who's a bully. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. These are the things that bother me, but I'm somebody who thinks about things a little bit too much. That's one of the reasons why I like movies that have like 10,000 layers and shit going on. These things tend to, but at the same time, obviously, I understand that so many people worked on Wonder Woman 84, and it's not, it's kind of like the whole thing shouldn't be torn down. People shouldn't be like, oh, I'm not going to see it because Jeff Johns is involved. No, but I'm wondering why he's involved. That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering why he hasn't been put on the back burner or separated from. And I'm not saying, one thing about me with issues like this is people like Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon and John Berg and others. I have said I do not want these people to like, oh, never make anything again and be canceled forever. I'm not about that. Nobody's perfect. Some are less perfect than others, but nobody's perfect. But there needs to be some accountability, some restitution, apologies made, some decisive action to do better, to make things better, to make people whole, to make things whole. I have not seen any of that. And until I do, I will remain on their necks.
Yeah.
That's my pledge. I'm with you, Ray Fisher.
Yeah, I think, and hopefully more of us are on Ray Fisher's side as time goes on, and I think we need to be. I really do.
Yeah. And hopefully this perpetuates not just this project, other projects in Hollywood, also our workplaces, right? Everywhere that we are in the world, whether you're working at a mom and pop store or you're working in a big corporation, these things happen. And when these kind of public displays of a reckoning happens where, people who are in positions of authority are abusing their power and creating unsafe work environments in terms of bullying and mentally harming people and making people work in fear. I mean, when you have these public displays, there's also something happening with the Washington football team in terms of their work environment. It's going to be better for everyone. So this is much bigger than these movies and stories that we love. So we'll Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, I'm just saying I agree with you. And if I may, and then I don't want to drag it on too long.
It's okay.
I could be wrong on this. There's a racist streak in there too, and I have to say it. I mean, you can't tell me that that's not one of the reasons that they felt they could do that to a guy like Ray Fisher, young, up and coming, no power in the industry. I understand that, definitely. Add into the fact that he's a man of color. I think that also makes them also believe, yeah, I can fuck with this guy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also, we do know that part of one of the things that was an issue was something that they wanted him to do that Ray Fisher was adamant about in terms of racial issues.
Yep.
So there is that component. And we've discussed this. The fact that Ray Fisher, young African American with no following, so to speak, a character in comics who's black, and Zack Snyder made him a linchpin of the film, and these guys they just couldn't see it.
Nope.
They just couldn't see it, which are some of the issues that we talk about when we talk about Black Lives Matter movements and stuff like that. Sometimes it's not overt, I hate black people, KKK. Sometimes it's just this system that's been built where people just lack the imagination. They just can't see people of color in those roles being given the attention that's been given to others before. And you can call it an omission and oversight, but it has really effects. It has real effects, and it propagates the system that diminishes some and elevates others based on race.
I agree.
So very serious topic. It's been a roller coaster ride of an episode. We've had highs and we've had lows, but I hope you guys have both been entertained and informed. So let's move on to our coming soon section, and we have two trailers to talk about. One is not really a trailer. We'll just have a little bit of a word about it. So the first is Death on the Nile, the first trailer, official. This is the sequel to Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express. It's an adaptation of the iconic Agatha Christie novel of the same name, Death on the Nile. And Kenneth Branagh, director and star actor, plays iconic detective Hercule Poirot. And he also brings along with him his mustache, which is a completely different character. But he's joined by an all-star cast that includes Tom Bateman, Annette Bening, Russell Brand, Ali Fazal, Dawn French, Gal Gadot, Armie Hammer, Rosie Leslie, Emma McKee, Sophia Canodo, Jennifer Saunders, and Letitia Wright. Whew. That was, wow. And we got the trailer. So Christian, react. What do you think about it?
What a cast.
Yeah.
What a cast. Holy crap, is it loaded. And what I liked about it is, Agatha Christie, I don't know if you've ever read any of her novels.
I've read, when I was a kid, I used to read a bunch of them. I love murder novels.
And I think her novels were great because they didn't give away too much right away. You legitimately, it's almost like reading a game of Clue. Really is like reading a game of Clue.
Yeah, but Clue is based off, that's what's based off. Oh, yeah.
There you go. So, and you know what, you just taught me. So I didn't even realize that the game of Clue was based off Agatha Christie's novels. So it makes sense. That it feels like you're reading through one of those games, and kept your interest from beginning to end. And I read both of these novels. I think they're both great books. And this was so lush and beautiful. And what I liked about it is some of the shots reminded me a little of The Great Gatsby. And I love the way that movie was shot. So I have to repeat that I just don't know yet what's going to happen with theaters and myself and my wife going to see. But the first movie was a surprise. It kind of came out of nowhere and made $300 some odd million on a $55 million budget.
Did you see that one in theaters?
Yeah, I did not see it in theaters. I did not see it in theaters. I saw it.
I did.
I wished I saw it in theaters after I saw the movie. I wished I saw it in theaters. So I am really intrigued to see this movie. I am just so sad that I'm not ready to return to theaters yet. What's the release date on this, Lupe?
It's October 23, so not far away. Soon here.
So maybe. Where I live in New Jersey, the infection rate has dropped. We are not opening our theaters yet. I don't think we're planning on it until the end of September. So it is possible that I would go see this with a mask on and everything like that. But I don't know. I can't speak to that yet. I'm not ready yet. This sucker is available on demand. One of those. Absolutely. This would be a movie I would go see. I was pleasantly surprised with the first movie. So more the same. I really like Kenneth Branagh. I like the way he directs movies. His Shakespeare has been fantastic. He was even good in his MCU. is very
absolutely.
Different. Very
like this. I was about to say this reminds me, just because of the color palette, reminds me of his Thor. In terms of just look, he did a really good job with Asgard.
He absolutely really did. It made it feel like it was a very lived-in world, a very lived-in fantasy world. And his Hamlet was phenomenal. I think he did Henry V. That was really good. I have high hopes for this. I really do. And it's got the right cast in place. Very sumptuous, very lush. So yeah, color me in. I'm absolutely put this one down for me. I just unfortunately don't know if my wife and I'll be ready to go to theaters by then, but I am definitely watching this movie.
Oh yeah, I echo your sentiments. I didn't watch the entire trailer. There's this thing that I've started doing where if I start watching the trailer and I'm convinced, if it's like, Jesus Christ, this looks good, I'm hooked. By the time it gets to about 60% of the trailer, if it's giving me too much, I just stop. I'm like, I don't need to see anymore because I am sold. And Gal Gadot, god damn, what a woman!
She's perfect.
What a woman!
Perfect. My
Jeez.
God.
Right. So I mean, she was in there looking like a whole cheesecake with the cherry on top. And Armie Hammer also looking very dapper and handsome. They made a very handsome couple.
Yes.
Really got that it's got a very romantic. While Murder on the Orient Express felt different. That was more claustrophobic, right?
Yeah,
and then
it
we're in
was.
icy mountains. This one, it's more open, and there's this romantic feel of, they're on this paradise getaway on the Nile, and as you said, the Great Gatsby feels to it. Just seems like such a beautiful getaway. And then a murder.
Thank you, Mr. Perot.
Yeah, it's got that very it's provocative. That mix is provocative, and I think it's gonna be dope. I can't remember who the perpetrator of the crime is. Obviously, I'm not gonna find out. I'm not gonna anything. Yeah, I can't wait to see this one. I'm really glad that there is a space for this kind of movie, this kind of, it's not quite a blockbuster, but you wouldn't say it's like a small indie movie anyway. And
absolutely.
And it's adult as well in terms of it's not like a Sonic the Hedgehog or I'm happy that it's here, and I can't wait for him to do all of her books. Yeah, I'm here for it, Mr. Bronner. So yeah, tell us what you guys think of the Death of the Nile trailer if you've seen it. What do you think about Gal Gadot? She was looking fine as hell.
God.
Feel free to tell us how you feel. And the last teaser trailer we'll talk about is the one for the Snyder Cut. It's not really a trailer. It's like one of those like teasers for teaser things. What are your thoughts on it? I bet you my bottom dollar you're not as excited as I am, and that's okay. Tell us your truth.
I am not as excited as you. You're right. However, that doesn't necessarily mean I wasn't happy with what I saw. We talked a little bit earlier. I like a color grading that's a little in between, but for the love of God, it's still an improvement over what the hell we saw in that theatrical version of Justice League, which was just an assault to the senses. Very, very brief, obviously. There wasn't a lot there. I like the little touches. The music, give it to me. Come on, give it. I love the music. You guys know how I feel about Hans Zimmer, and you got Junkie XL. So come on. That Danny Elfman score was such a step back from what we had gotten. Come on, it's just really, and that's not against Danny Elfman. I know he's done Batman.
It wasn't a fit. They forced it to pander.
It was just a bad fit. I agree, just a bad fit. I like how the little bit that we saw with the confrontation with Superman is more of a confrontation. That little bit definitely looked like they were gearing up for a fight immediately, which means there's a darker Clark that's rising from the grave than we thought. The "If You Seek His Monument" was a nice callback to the end of BVS there. And of course, how can I forget to mention what we had talked about earlier? Cyborg, man, you're getting to see a little bit more of him now. With the football game and everything, you can see we're gonna get more about his background. We've been told how many times that he has been completely, basically written out of the theatrical version. It'll be so much nicer to see that as opposed to whatever the hell that we got. So yeah, those things definitely. And as I said to you before, I'll end it on. As I said, whatever our feelings are, I always felt that Zack had a good handle on Superman and Man of Steel. And I liked a lot of BVS. I didn't like as much as you and Paul did, but I liked a lot of BVS. And it was a travesty of what happened to Justice League. So I want to see the continuation of Superman's story and how he was meant to be resurrected. I want to see that. And this is the true way that he was meant to be resurrected. There's so much more here. You can tell in just this brief 28-second clip that we got. So yeah, I mean, sure. Am I not as excited as you, Lupe? No, but am I happy? Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I mean, I'm gonna keep on ringing that bell, and I am just elated. Just the emotions and the feels that it gave me. I mean, obviously the movie itself, but obviously the movement behind the movie.
Right.
But seeing how different it looks, it's like, yes, that's a Zack Snyder movie. See,
that's the other big thing. It makes it feel like you're in the same universe. That's why Justice League was such a affront.
Absolutely. Like, no matter what, look, at the end of the day, haters are gonna hate what Zack Snyder. Right. Yeah, but it's the same way with Marvel. Think about it. People who don't like Marvel are not gonna like Marvel things. But you know what? Yeah. At least they will be what they are, right? It's not like you get a James Gunn movie and they're trying to make it like a Zack Snyder movie. You're like, what is going, those were some of the things that audiences and people who gravitate to these things were just like, even people who don't like it saw it and knew immediately that this is just wrong. Like, even people who love hating on Zack Snyder saw it and they're like, come on, guys. Like, we want to hate on this guy. Like, come on. So, just seeing how much his touch, like his signature touch, returning to his property, it just filled me with so much joy to be like, yes, this is just, and it's exact, like the color grading. Yes, you can say it's too dark. You don't like it. Like, like, I'm not talking about you. Like, I know you're saying you prefer something, but you're okay with it. Some people just outright don't like it, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with anyone disliking it. There are things that, for example, like the aspect ratio. I wish that the aspect ratio was wider.
Gotcha.
But
yeah, I understand.
That's just me wishing. But the main thing to me is that this is what he wants to do. That's just the main thing. So just let him do what he wants to do. I don't want him doing things because it's popular. People won't like this. That's not your voice. Then you're, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, doing things for other people is just not, it's something that we don't encourage our kids to do. It's something that we always preach about. Oh, be yourself. Be happy with yourself. Don't follow the crowd. So then why is it that when it comes to people who are artists and stuff, we forget all those, great things that we always preach and we always talk about, and we go the other route. So, I'm just very excited to see it in terms of dissecting it a little bit, even before the real trailer. Ray Fisher is the only other character that got his own his own, and that says a lot because, as Zach said, he is the heart of the movie, the core of the movie. This is a
Right.
character who's not
Right.
popular. This is a character who's not like, it's not, oh my goodness, it's Batman,
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's a big step, a very big thing, something that Ray Fisher lauded Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio for when everybody was talking, when in the heat of the conversation about Black Lives Matter, a conversation that should always continue. That, you know, a black actor and a black character, like we talk about meritocracy and creating an equal playing field and not judging people just based on color and not ignoring people. That's another thing, or omitting people
Absolutely.
because they don't have, an affectation that, we've been used to propping up forever. So that's a very powerful thing. Also, when Superman looks and reads, it's a monument that says, if you seek his monument, look around
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Basically, the Justice League are his monument. They're his legacy. And I know that's the way Zack Snyder makes movies. I'm able to see those things. So those are some breakdowns. He looks down and says, if you seek his monument, look around you. And then the Justice League, they're going to land behind him and he's going to look around him and see Wonder Woman, who he inspired to come back from her 100 years hiatus. He's going to see Flash. He's going to see Aquaman, Cyborg, all these metahumans that came to the forefront because he came out in Man of Steel. That's the way that Zack Snyder designed this universe, for Superman to be the beacon that brings out metahumans from the underground into the forefront. So if you seek Superman's monument, in that instance, there's a visual. So that's why I love the way he makes movies. And the reason why some people get him and some people don't is if you don't understand his language of making movies, you just won't understand it. It's just a couple shots. But it's people who understand what he does, they can dive deep and see all these things. So the full trailer is gonna be something else.
And I think it's important too in this little, before we end here, I think it's important in this very little, whatever it was, 25 to 30 second teaser, that it is very Zach. And we don't have to say that positively or negatively. That's not what it is. It is, that was the point of this whole thing. He's been very excited and very passionate since this announcement. I mean, it was all that before that. But since this announcement, he's been very excited and very passionate. And this brief little snippet that we saw is very Zach. Very, very much. So,
Absolutely.
When you see that, that's telling you whatever we're going to get at Fandom and whatever Zack Snyder's Justice League, whatever it is, the Snyder Cut becomes, will be him. So for better, for worse, for hater or for lover, for whatever it is, this is his, man. And that's what this was all about. So, and even me, who's not an Uber fan, watching this brief 30-second snippet, I said, that looks like something Zach would make. Yep. And isn't that was the whole point? So,
it is.
Yeah. So you can't, end of the day, bottom line, you should at least feel happy for the fucking guy. Seriously. Yeah. God, just feel good for him.
Yeah. And well, on that positive note, there goes our episode of ENN number 39.
Woo-hoo.
As advertised, it was a long one. Hope you guys enjoy this primer. We wish you the best for the weekend. We hope you enjoy DC Fandome and come back and talk to us about the amazing things that we saw and heard. It's going to be a blowout episode on ENN 40 coming up next week. Christian, say goodbye to the people.
This was a good one, man. It was a marathon, but I had a lot of fun. And it was great to be back after a real break and, for the last 2 weeks. If you guys, Paul had to jump, remember he's at _Paul_P. I am at chart6363 at both Twitter and Instagram.
Absolutely. And once again, Paul is on Twitter at _Paul_P. I have been yours truly, Lupe. You can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. You can also find me on Vero at LiveLoveLupe. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Film Exiles ENN. And until next time, stay exiled.